The debate over who gets to be part of country music is by no means new and in fact dates back to before country was commercialised a century ago. The origins of country music lie in the rural cattle-rearing culture of America's South, which was not solely white but had a mix of ethnicities. The music started to permeate across the nation in the middle of last century. But now, with the help of social media and the influx of musicians who've made their names in other types of music, it has found new audiences. This inquiry was presented by me, Tanya Beckett. The producers were Louise Clark and Lorna Reeder. The editor is Tara McDermott, and it was mixed by Cameron Ward.
That was the inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence. I'm sitting in for Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Let's head over to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us now with a look at news headlines. Hello.
Good morning. Well, remote healthcare workers in Winnipeg have been told they need to prepare to spend more time in the office this summer. Shared Health and the WRHA says all remote workers in Winnipeg need to spend at least half their hours in the office starting in July. Staff memos went out on Monday, and the Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals describes these memos as sweeping edicts, so we'll hear more about that. And here's something you won't be hearing until next season. The chant, "Go Jets Go," wasn't enough to lift the Jets to a win. Winnipeg is out of the playoffs, an early exit after losing last night to Colorado 6-3. We'll hear more about that in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
I don't know about you, Heather. I had to stop watching after the first period just because I thought I better try to get some sleep so I can wake up. I'm not sure how to feel about this morning because there are folks who both feel like it was a great game and a good effort, and some folks who might be both disappointed and not so happy. What are you hearing from folks around you?
Yeah, and you know what? That's what I'm hearing from in the post-game interviews. The coach and the players say, we played better. That was our best game of the series. It wasn't enough. It stings, and we've got some growing to do.
We're going to be working through all those emotions all morning. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. If you're just waking up, yes, the Jets lost last night. But tell you what, call our listener line today about how you plan on managing 2047-883205, 2047-883205. We're going to be here with you as we deal with what's to come next. Speaking of which, we are going to hear from folks in St. Boniface, which have been fighting hard to save Happy Land Park outdoor pool. It's one of several city pools slated to close over the next few years. The St. Boniface Residents Association has started a fundraiser, and we'll hear more about how much they've raised so far. Stay tuned for that conversation coming up first here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. World Report is next.
Today on Q. Romance novels were once something you'd see at the grocery store with titles like Lust on the High Seas. Emily Henry is a best-selling author credited with cracking the modern romance novel. She'll be here to tell you how she did it and why you should still believe in true love.
A love story is a really good way to force characters through intense transformation.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. A masked man drags a metal barrier away from a pro-Palestinian encampment at UCLA. Rival protest groups are clashing. The Los Angeles Police Department is on the scene. There have been hours of unrest. Students and others are calling on the university to divest from any Israeli entities and organizations that support Israel's war on Gaza. The CBC's Steve Futterman is at a protest, and he joins me now. Steve, how far away are police from the encampment?
Oh, there may be, I would say, 100 meters away. They're ready to move in. I spoke to one member of the California Highway Patrol and said they're getting their plans ready right now. This is not complete chaos here. It may sound like it is, but we're not having constant fights. It's just an occasional fight, lots of nasty words being exchanged by the two sides, but lots of potential problems, and that's why the police are here. And we have some peacemakers as well. Some peacemakers on both sides saying, move back, we're done. But obviously that's not going to be enough to stop all this.
And you say nasty words. There have been accusations on some campuses of things becoming anti-Semitic. Is that the kind of thing you're hearing?
Oh yeah, I mean there's expletives used, there's anti-Semitic words used, there's anti-Palestinian words used. I mean both sides are pretty equal in that regard. And I should point out, I do see some people on the counter-protest side carrying what appears to be sticks, which could be used as weapons. Now right here, you might hear in the background, somebody has tried to pull a barricade away, a metal barricade, and they're having a fight. What the counter-protesters want to do is separate the barricades from the encampment, because the barricades have been sort of protecting the encampment. So just a moment ago, I saw someone just rip off a metal barricade and they pulled it aside. So that would leave the encampment with less protection than before.
Thank you.
Take care, Marcia.
Freelance reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. There is a major push to de-escalate tension in the Middle East, too. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Tel Aviv. He is working to get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in place.
The only reason that wouldn't be achieved is because of Hamas. There is a proposal on the table, and as we've said, no delays, no excuses. The time is now.
This current round of talks appears to be serious. Hamas has reportedly just asked for more clarity on whether displaced Palestinians will be able to return to northern Gaza. And in Israel, families of the hostages hope this deal will bring their loved ones home.
SOS USA! Bring our children home today!
A group outside the venue where Blinken has been meeting with Israeli President Isaac Herzog. Blinken told them to keep the faith. He says bringing the hostages home is at the heart of everything the U.S. has done. A strict abortion law takes effect in Florida today. It bans women from getting the procedure after 6 weeks. Up until now, the limit was 15 weeks. And as Sasha Petrusik reports, clinics across the state have been packed. There is a rush to beat that ban.
Can't take it no more! Can't take it no more!
Months of protests by women's rights groups couldn't stop Florida's swing toward the abortion restrictions, approved by a conservative state Supreme Court, backed by voters from the religious right.
It is not our choice. It's God's choice whether we live or die. It's not up to us.
Under the law, which takes effect today, abortions will be banned after 6 weeks in Florida, a state women from elsewhere in the South relied on, as abortion restrictions spread across the U.S. in the 2 years since the federal Supreme Court's decision overturned Roe v. Wade. It's also one of the most populous states. Clinics there performed more than 84,000 abortions last year, according to a state health agency.
We get calls every day needing our services, and some of the people we've had to turn away.
Florida clinics have been jammed for weeks as women try to beat the deadline. 20-year-old Jernica is waiting for her appointment outside a clinic.
Abortion is still going to happen, whether it happens legally or illegally. It'll happen like on the streets. It'll just be unsafe.
Women's rights advocates now have their sights set on November, when Florida voters will decide whether the right to an abortion should be enshrined in the state constitution. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Washington.
Here at home, a lot of people will be tuning into Question Period this afternoon. They'll be watching to see if the fireworks we saw yesterday in the House of Commons gets repeated. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was kicked out for calling the Prime Minister a wacko, and the rest of his caucus left in protest. Let's bring in the CBC's Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, has something fundamentally changed with the way Canadians do politics?
Marcia, yes, things reached a boiling point yesterday, but it's not clear that this is a turning point. After the opposition bench emptied MPs picked up their phones, took the fight online, ranting to their armies of virtual supporters pushing for sign-ups and donations, monetizing, basically, the dysfunction in the House. Those wanting to talk to Conservatives in real life about what happened had to make do with fleeting camera shots of even normally accessible Conservative MPs like Michelle Rempel-Garner as she booted it down the hall.
And the fact that the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada was thrown out of there for doing his exact job is shameful, unbelievable.
On Power and Politics last night, NDP House Leader Peter Julian pointed out that when his Conservative counterpart, Andrew Scheer, was Speaker, he drew a very hard line against any MP that questioned the decisions of the chair. Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon framed this dysfunction as an attempt to make Canada's democracy look like it's broken too, telling viewers this is not banal or normal.
They break the rules. They are called on breaking those rules, invited to comply with the rules, and when that doesn't work, they go out and they scream victimhood. They say the institutions do not welcome our views.
Well, how much does this have to do with the Speaker's control of the House?
Remember, Conservatives never wanted Greg Fergus to be Speaker. It was votes of other parties that elected him. Yesterday, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet thanked the Speaker for his common sense in the heat of the moment. The other parties loved having extra questions with the official opposition gone.
All right, thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Today is the official start of the $34 billion Trans Mountain Oil Pipeline Expansion Project. The twin pipeline from Alberta to BC and the coast there will be transporting crude oil. The expansion increases the Trans Mountain System's shipping capacity from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000. It is expected to help open up global export markets for Canadian oil and help improve the price Canadian oil companies get for their product. Grocery giant Loblaw could be facing a boycott starting today. An online campaign has been targeting the company. People frustrated with rising food prices are asking Canadians to shop at other stores this May. Anis Hadari reports.
Remember when they were caught fixing bread prices?
Les Misères Loblaws, a musical take from Toronto's Opera Review with the push to boycott the biggest food retailer in Canada.
Have you heard of the guillotine?
In non-musical versions of the campaign, social media site Reddit features a section called Loblaws is Out of Control. It's calling for Canadians to shop somewhere else in May. Food retail analyst Kevin Greer says he understands the vibe when it comes to food prices and inflation.
Now, is it fair to blame Loblaw? No. I think it's easiest to blame Loblaw. They're the biggest.
More than 50,000 Reddit members have signed up for the anti-Loblaw page. But that doesn't mean 50,000 people will be shopping elsewhere, says University of Toronto marketing professor David Soberman.
With social media and with the fact that people are able to publicize their upset and anger at a particular organization, it gives us the impression that it's much larger than it is.
However, Loblaw could still be hurt by this campaign if customers decide to just try somewhere else.
Because there's always a possibility they might actually prefer the competitor to you. So that's really where the risk for Loblaws lies in this.
While Loblaw is reporting its profits today, they won't reflect the backlash, if any, to this boycott. The company said in a statement it's aware it has to win customers' business, but that it believes customers are noticing value at its stores. Anis Hadari, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report News Anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, Manitoba. Don't forget, we're all in this together. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And hello to the folks watching on the YouTube stream. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer, Corey Funk, our studio director, Abby Adiemi, our technician today. Coming up on the program, avian influenza H5N1 has been detected in cows in the U.S. We'll hear from our guide to all things health, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj, to explain what that means for us in Canada coming up. First, though, this half hour, people in St. Boniface have been fighting hard to save Happy Land Park outdoor pool, one of several city pools slated to close over the next few years. The South St. Boniface Residents Association has started a fundraiser. We'll tell you how much they've raised so far. First up here on the program. Stay tuned. "11 minutes after 6 o'clock, and Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk joining us now. Hello as well.
Good morning. Well, police in Edmonton believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg may be connected to a series of arsons and other shootings in Alberta. South Asian home builders have been targeted in Edmonton. The Winnipeg shooting happened Christmas Eve in a Maples area home. Edmonton Police Staff Sergeant Eric Stewart says one bullet narrowly missed someone inside that home. Police have now issued Canada-wide warrants for a 19-year-old suspect who they believe has gone to India. So we'll hear more about this. As well, some people in Peguis First Nation have been forced to live in a condemned school because of a housing crisis. Peguis has declared a state of emergency because of that shortage of housing. We'll have more on that. We'll also have more on something that may have you feeling a little sad this morning. The Winnipeg Jets become the first Canadian team eliminated from the playoffs after losing to Colorado here at home last night. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 6:30.
I'm really trying hard not to shout, "We're number one." Oh, wait, it's not. we don't want to be the first one for that. So
we were like number one Canadian team out. We were number 4. That's the troubling part of all of it, Faith. We were number 4, the 4th best team in the league before the playoffs. And then it just kind of the wheels came off a little bit.
It's a very complicated thing, but we're going to get through it this morning, Heather Wells.
Yes, we will.
Thanks
we have
very
each
much.
other.
Exactly. And by the way, if you want to call us and let us know how you're managing today, 2047-883205, 2047-883205. I mean, you might say, never mind, it's fine, don't worry about it. Or maybe you have a different routine that you do to deal with it. Let us know because we'd love to share your thoughts. You can also find me on Instagram at Faith Fundal. Corey Funk, how are you managing?
Oh man, I'm tired. I managed to stay up to the second period, and then my eyes were. I just couldn't stay open.
You might have weather that might make us feel better, so stay tuned. Or you'll talk about the commute, so stay tuned.
Yes.
But Abby Adiemi has more on the weather, which I don't know. Will it help us feel better?
Well, it's going to be more like we're looking at the mix of sun and cloud, mix of cloudy conditions today. Rather, we're not going to be seeing sunshine. So it's cloudy out there. We're starting at 6 degrees. We're looking at a mix of clouds with a chance of showers this morning and into the early afternoon period. However, things should clear up as we move into the afternoon. Expect a high of 13 today for Winnipeg. Now, tonight forecast as the day winds down, the skies will clear up, but don't get too comfortable because they'll get to start rolling back before morning with some fog patches developing overnight, and then we will see some showers tomorrow. Across board, it's more like cloudy skies. Brandon is already at 4 degrees with light rain. It's going to clear up later. Thompson is at 1, chance of flurries today. Churchill is cloudy. It's heading to a high of 1. Dauphin is at 3. Showers also expected. Gimli is expecting showers at 4 degrees. Steinbach, a few showers already happening, and they're at 5 degrees. And Morris will also see showers. So in summary, we've got like a bit of everything in store for us. Showers in the morning, clearing in the afternoon, then rain returning overnight.
Bit of everything.
A
Thanks
bit
very
of
much.
everything. Yeah, you're welcome.
Corey, the commute so far?
Bit of everything reflects my mood this morning as well. Just feeling a little bit of everything. A little tired.
Depends on how you sit in your chair.
Yes,
Could be
exactly.
good, could be
bad. A little
bad.
happy that there isn't any more late nights ahead for me now. Maybe a little relief there. Really quiet commute overall so far. Haven't heard anything going on out there on the highways. Reminder though, Highway 75 still is just down to 1 lane both ways between St. Agath and Morris because of construction going on in the southbound lane. 80 kilometers an hour there, so might be a little bit slow for folks there. But if you see anything else going on out there on the highways, roads, bike lanes, sidewalks, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
coming up to 16 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Wendell in for Marcy Marcusa. As the weather gets warmer, relief from the heat is important for everyone this summer, but the city has plans to close several outdoor pools over the next few years. Now, one of those is the Happy Land Pool in St. Boniface. The city saying it would cost $85,000 to maintain and keep the pool open. So the South St. Boniface Residents Association stepped in and formed Friends of Happy Land Pool, fighting to keep the pool open. And last month, it organized a community fundraiser, and it was a success, saying that it raised more than $70,000 in funding donations. Radio-Canada's Victor L'Ouest spoke with Teresa Quick, one of the organizers of the fundraiser.
Well, the city had planned to close the pool, but we did a fundraising campaign, and we've managed to collect over $70,000, just private citizens, groups, associations. And the province has announced, Robert Lizelle, the MLA for St. Boniface, contacted me, and he said the province has announced a new program where it will help low-income neighborhoods, and he said that we would qualify to get a grant of maybe up to $50,000.
How do you feel after collecting $70,000 or maybe have 50,000 more?
Wonderful. Yes, it's a very good feeling. I'm very happy today to be able to say that to you. We still plan on doing more fundraising because we're not sure how much this will all cost. But we're glad that we're hoping that the city is going to be working with us. And we saved the pool, and we'll see each other there and do another interview at that time at the pool.
How was the last month when you collected all this?
It was very time-consuming, and but most people that we asked, everybody sees the value in the pool and wanted to help save it and wanted to give money towards saving it if it could. We weren't sure if the city will still allow it to be open. It still has to go through all the City Hall processes, but I'm more confident today than I was maybe a few weeks ago that we have a chance to keep it open for our whole community, the seniors, the people with disabilities, the children, the teenagers, everybody.
What are your expectations now?
To keep it, we want to keep the pool going for as long as we can. The pool is in good shape as far as I know, and so we're hoping to continue this for many years. We're going to work on a solution. Like if we manage to keep it open this year, it will give us some time to work on a solution to saving it for the future years.
And do you hope to see it open this summer?
This summer, yes. We've asked the city if they would operate it this summer because the timelines are too close. We would not be able to come up with a way to operate it. So we're hopeful that the city would do that for us this year. And that would, like I said, that will give us time to put something in place, make plans for the future.
Teresa Quick is a member of South St. Boniface Residents Association, speaking with Radio-Canada's Victor L'Ouest. You can read more on this story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
I'm Janet Stewart. A summit on plastic pollution wrapped up Tuesday in Ottawa. As countries, companies, and ecologists work to wrestle out an agreement, we go grassroots and ask you, how can we use and discard less plastic? Join us for our call-in conversation Wednesday on Radio Noon. Weigh in now at 204-788-3797.
Thanks very much, Janet. And just about 20 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Haida artist Donnie Edenshaw believes he has a responsibility to teach folks about the traditions of his community, even as he continues to learn about them. Now with a song to start this morning, it's a traditional one called Greeting the Day. At Hatigwai on BC's north coast, that was Donnie Edenshaw with a traditional called Greeting the Day. Just about 23 minutes after 6 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. It has been called a landmark experiment, BC's pilot program to tackle its toxic drug crisis by decriminalizing the possession of some illicit drugs in public. But open drug use and a continued rise in drug-related deaths has led to a public backlash, and now the province appears to be shifting course. Bill Bogart is a retired law professor and author of a book on the subject. He's in Toronto. Hi, Bill.
Good morning.
Let's talk about this latest policy on drug use in public spaces in BC. What do the changes entail exactly?
Well, if it goes forward, it would allow the police to intervene where drugs are being used in public spaces and there's a threat to public safety and order. In other words, the drug users are engaging in antisocial acts, etc. The police could simply warn the individuals to, stop the conduct. They could tell the individuals to leave the particular public space. They could seize their drugs, and in particular circumstances, they could even arrest them. But otherwise, the pilot project on decriminalization continues. That is to say that individuals can have 2.5 grams of the selected drugs on their for their personal possession and use, and if that's the case, then their activities would not attract any kind of criminal sanctions. But it's important to emphasize this is decriminalization. It's not legalization, so people still have to access the drugs from illicit sources.
So how would you characterize how successful, or perhaps not successful, the pilot program has been?
Well, that's a very important question. I think we're in the midst of it, so it's maybe too early to tell. It runs for 3 years. It started in January of last year. Certainly one hallmark of success is that the charges for use of drugs have gone way down, and then that's good not only for the individuals but for the criminal justice system. Police can deploy the resources on other matters. But one of the reasons for decriminalization is that it will reduce stigma, and people who need help will come forward to get that help.
And we have not really seen that at all.
Yeah, and that is a very excellent point you're making. I mean, it really has shone the light on the need for good quality treatment facilities and facilities that encourage people to come forward and get the help they need.
So in light of the results so far of this pilot, how do you think British Columbia's experience might be informing what other provinces might be considering or thinking about in terms of potentially doing something like this?
Yeah, well, let me just pick two. I mean, one is Alberta, who is opposed. That province is opposed to decriminalization and puts its emphasis on treatment. And as I said, good quality treatment is absolutely necessary. But how the province is going about it has definitely caused controversy. Another province is mine, Ontario. The Premier very recently said he's adamantly opposed to decriminalization. At the same time, the City of Toronto has an application in front of the federal government for a pilot project in the city. What's also interesting to note about Ontario, at least Toronto, is that there are virtually no charges laid by police for simple possession and use. Like last year, there were like 15, I think. So we, in Ontario, at least Toronto, we have a kind of, in fact, decriminalization going on, but without any of the safeguards that are necessary to really make that step successful.
And then, of course, there's the politics in that. What did you make of how opposition parties in British Columbia have been framing the success of this program?
Yeah, and at the federal level, Mr. Poilievre is doing much the same. And, the Liberals aren't remaining calm. I mean, there was a shouting match in Parliament yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I think people should just take a deep breath and let this pilot project go forward. It's being studied intensely. And, at the end, we will see how decriminalization is actually working. I mean, I think at a theoretical level, it's a good idea. People shouldn't be charged for simple drug possession and use. And incidentally, that is the growing sentiment across the country. But then how to implement decriminalization in an effective way, how to balance care and concern for those who are having problems with drugs against the need for public safety and people being able to go about their business is a dilemma. I think the other thing I would say is drug use is tied up with poverty, homelessness, mental health issues, and we really have to decide as a society, do we have the will and resources to deal with these really serious issues that are confronting us?
Of course, you have studied law, and what we're talking about arguably is also the moral question. That's all the time we have, Bill. Thanks for making time today, and take good care.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Bill Bogart is a retired law professor and author of a book on the subject. It's called Off the Street, Legalizing Drugs. He was in Toronto. I'm Faith Fundal here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello as well to the folks watching on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. Corey Funk, our studio director. Abby Adeyemi, our technician. If you are just waking up, we're just about 6:30. If you see any issues on your commute, 204-788-3093. We'll share with our listeners, 204-788-3093. More to come in our next half hour after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is cloudy. It's 6 degrees right now. We're beginning May with a chance of showers, although clearing this afternoon and still slightly cooler than seasonal, a high today of 13. Police in Edmonton believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg may be connected to a series of arsons and other shootings in Alberta. South Asian home builders have been targeted in Edmonton. The Winnipeg shooting happened Christmas Eve in the Maples. Edmonton Police Chief Sergeant Eric Stewart says several members of the family were home at the time and one bullet narrowly missed someone inside. He says the homeowner had been extorted and threatened before the shooting. But Stewart wouldn't say too much else about the family in Winnipeg.
I can't give too many details. Obviously, we're trying to protect the complainants in some of these events, right? It's tough for sometimes to come forward and be a willing complainant in these investigations. So I can tell you, connected to a home builder in Edmonton.
Investigators allege a 19-year-old suspect who they believe has gone to India is responsible for the shooting and for two others in Edmonton. Edmonton police say someone in India is directing local suspects to carry out crimes and then benefiting from it. Some people in Peguis First Nation have been forced to live in a condemned school because of a housing crisis. Even though the Interlake community didn't flood this year, the lingering effects of previous floods remain. Hundreds of homes have been condemned. Almost 800 people are displaced. Jace Garson and his partner are among 8 people who are staying in rooms in that condemned school.
We're having a hard time with housing right now, and there's about a few of us that are staying in here, and it is kind of hard having a host in here.
The roof leaks and the walls have mold. Garson says he can't take his 3 daughters to live with him. They are in Fisher River with his sister. Peguis has declared a state of emergency because of the shortage of housing. Remote healthcare workers in Winnipeg have been told they need to prepare to spend more time in the office this summer. Shared Health and the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority say all remote workers in Winnipeg will need to spend at least half their hours in the office starting July. The staff memos sent Monday say the changes align with ones made by Crown corporations and other public sector organizations. Jason Linkletter, president of the Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals, describes the memos as sweeping edicts. Well, starting today, 1.7 million seniors aged 70 and older will be covered under the new Canadian Dental Care Plan. The $13 billion program will eventually cover 1 in 4 people who don't have private dental insurance. You can hear more on this story as well as other national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A mother of 2 from Saging First Nation has been selected to compete in the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada pageant. Ocean Briere will be one of 29 contestants taking part in the pageant in July in southern Ontario. She was chosen from more than 350 women across Canada, and she says at first she couldn't believe she'd been selected.
I feel like it's sunk in now, and it's been like a couple weeks now. It's like I couldn't believe I got in. Like there are so many amazing Indigenous women who are doing amazing things out there.
Briere has started a GoFundMe page and is seeking sponsorships to cover her travel costs. She says modeling has always been a childhood dream. Well, it's a dream shattered. Winnipeg Jets fans packed downtown streets again last night. But now they're packing away their whiteout gear after the Jets were sent packing from the playoffs last night. It's the second straight season the Jets have had a first-round exit. But Jets fan Connor Green is already looking to next year.
It's a hard team to play. They kept it passing in the zone. It was really hard. It was tough for the Jets. But next year we're gonna get them. Vegas last year they got us pretty good. Next series we got them good. We got them good.
Well, last night the Jets got the start they wanted.
Tried to clear, and the Jets strike first in Game 5.
Kyle Connor in the first period on ESPN, but it wasn't to be as the Jets get buried by that avalanche. 6-3, Colorado takes the series in 5 games. The Jets' Josh Morrissey says it was disappointing and a missed opportunity.
They brought the Stanley Cup winning class to this series, and we didn't return it for 3 or 4 of those games. So we have levels that we need to find this offseason, and I hope it stings for all of us into the summer, and we use it as motivation.
Despite the early exit, coach Rick Bowness pulls a positive out of a negative, saying his team has grown since last year's playoffs. When asked if he'll be back coaching next season, Bowness says now is not the time for that conversation. So Winnipeg is now the first Canadian team out of the playoffs. Toronto staved off elimination last night, beating the Bruins. Edmonton and Vancouver are also still alive in their series. You can find more on that game as well as more on Manitoba News. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in for Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1 at 36 minutes after 6 o'clock. How are you managing? Let us know so that you can share in that sting. Or maybe you found a way to deal with it so you can move forward. 204-788-3205. We'd love to share your thoughts with our listeners. 204-788-3205. Abby Adiemi, the weather might help us because there's a bit of everything, right?
Yeah, a bit of everything, but I'll tell you, summing it up, it's more like clouds province-wide. That's what we're seeing. Currently, it's 6 degrees with cloudy conditions in Winnipeg. We're going to be experiencing a mix of clouds throughout the day with a chance of showers in the morning and then into the afternoon. But the conditions will improve later with a high of reaching 13. Now, tonight's expected to clear up, but the clouds will return again because of that rain we'll be expecting tomorrow morning. Heading west to Brandon, it's currently 4 degrees with light rain. Brandon will see cloudy skies and showers as they have been seen this morning, but should be clearing up by the afternoon, and the high is forecasted for 13. Moving north to Thompson, where it is 0 and cloudy today for folks up there, will experience mainly cloudy conditions with a 40% chance of flurries, reaching a high of +4 today. Further north in Churchill, it is currently -3 and mostly cloudy. Churchill can expect cloudy conditions with the high of 1. Heading to Dauphin now, where it is 3 degrees and cloudy. Dauphin will see cloudy conditions throughout the day with a few showers this morning, and the highs forecasted to reach 6. Gimli is at 4 degrees and cloudy. The Interlake region will experience cloudy conditions with a chance of showers and a high of 7. Steinbach is currently at 5 degrees and cloudy. Today we should be seeing a few showers ending this morning and then clearing with a high of 15. And finally in Morris, it is 4 degrees and cloudy. The Pembina Valley region will also see few showers this morning, followed by clearing and then a high of 15. For Winnipeg, it's showers in the morning, clearing up in the afternoon, then the rain will return tomorrow, but the temperatures will be hovering around mid-teens during the day and then dropping to around 7 degrees overnight. But today we're heading for a high of 13.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi, our technician today, also watching the weather. Corey Funk is our studio director. Hello.
Hello. Yes, very quiet commute so far, but it never ceases to amaze me how many cars manage to stall even when it's above 0. So give me a call when you see something out there. 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Corey Funker, studio director. Hello as well to the folks watching us on our YouTube stream at CBC Manitoba. Bradley Lays is our streaming producer. Let's head over to our CBC National Business Desk, and Crystalie Ramlakan joining us now with the Business Report. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Faith.
Canada's second largest bank is facing a pretty hefty fine. What are the details?
Yes, so TD is setting aside $450 million US to cover penalties that are the result of a lengthy U.S. regulatory and law enforcement investigation, which actually derailed the bank's takeover of Tennessee-based First Horizon Bank last spring. So the bank disclosed the charge in a statement yesterday after markets closed, and the initial provision is in connection into its anti-money laundering compliance program. So TD says its program was insufficient to effectively monitor, detect, report, and respond to suspicious activity. And the lender says it's spending hundreds of millions of dollars now to improve its risk and control systems in the U.S. Now, it has cautioned the full cost of the fines it might eventually face is unknown at this time. The bank says its discussions with 3 U.S. regulators and the Department of Justice are ongoing, and it anticipates even more penalties. And during the annual general meeting last month, the bank's chief executive acknowledged the investigation has weighed on its share price. Analysts have previously estimated the bank might ultimately face fines ranging from $500 million to $1 billion or more.
Ooh, not a small amount indeed. Cannabis stocks in Canada, they seem to be soaring right now. Do you know why?
Well, this is after reports that the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency will reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. So canopy growth closed up 80%, while Aurora Cannabis and Tilray brands closed up 46% and 40% respectively. The Associated Press, citing 5 sources familiar with the matter, reported the DEA's proposal would recognize the medical uses of cannabis and acknowledge it has less potential for abuse than other more dangerous drugs. However, it would not legalize marijuana for recreational use as it is here in Canada. Currently, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug in the U.S. alongside heroin and LSD. But with this move, it would be reclassified as a Schedule III drug alongside ketamine and some steroids. The reclassification of the drug in the U.S. could lessen risks for cannabis companies that operate south of the border and potentially improve investor appetite for cannabis stocks.
Walmart apparently trying a different strategy to attract shoppers. What do we know about this?
Yes, so the retailer plans to launch a new premium in-store brand called Better Goods this year, aimed at attracting new, often higher income shoppers and to encourage current shoppers to spend more. So the new brand will include foods such as cardamom rose raspberry jam and curry chicken empanadas. Yeah, so Walmart plans to add more than 300 items, many of which will cost $5 or less still. And it is a big strategic bet for the retailer as it competes with stores like Costco, Loblaw, and Whole Foods, who all have their own extensive store brands. Now, private food labels are gaining ground as shoppers confront higher prices. However, this move could annoy food companies already fighting for space on Walmart shelves. And apparently, Faith, getting the brand going took years. To generate fresh ideas, executives ate at hundreds of restaurants around the world. And, the trips may sound like a lot of fun, but the executives say sometimes they were kind of painful because the team had to eat 8 meals a day sometimes. Now the company, though, is cutting back on investment elsewhere. It's shutting down all 51 of the health clinics it opened over the past 5 years as it had tried to build a bigger healthcare business.
The markets so far this morning, how are they doing?
In Europe, London's FTSE 100 index was slightly higher, while most European markets were closed for the May Day/Labor Day public holiday in the region. So Germany is down right now, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, Japanese markets fell as investors brace for the U.S. Federal Reserve's rate decision. So Japan is down, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is up. Oil is down $1.17 to $80.76 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up 50 cents to $2,303.30 U.S. per ounce, and the dollar is up 0.06 of a cent to 72.64 cents U.S.
Really nice chatting with you, and take good care.
You too. Thanks, Faith.
That's Christely Ramlikan from your CBC National Business Desk. 16 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Still to come, avian influenza H5N1 has been detected in cows in the U.S. We'll hear from our guide to all things health, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj, to explain what that means for us here in Canada. That's still to come. First, though, depending on your age, nostalgia may hit you when you see a tie-dye shirt. Maybe an old action figure or a Barbie dream house. But if you were a kid in 1998, it's probably Pokemon. Those anime monsters were everywhere. Now those kids are grown up. Can you believe that? And have more money than just an allowance. The tug of nostalgia makes Pokemon good business. More from the CBC's Philip Drost.
I want to be the very best, like no one ever was.
If that song makes you want to sit in front of the TV with a bowl of Lucky Charms, you're not alone. Daniel Douse was 6 when Pokemon cards came to Canada in the late 90s.
I remember going to the convenience store just around the corner and buying packs of cards. In hindsight, could have made some serious money buying sealed product back then, but the joy was just ripping the cards and having fun trading at school and, sometimes getting the better deal.
As a teen, Daniel lost interest in Pokemon cards and stopped collecting. But at 30, he's back at it.
Beautiful set. Like these are cards that personally I would consider putting on a wall.
He keeps his most precious cards in a case that looks like it could be bulletproof.
And then a couple of other ones here that are just kind of, a bit more rare from Japan.
And that's because they're more valuable than you think.
Probably close to $10,000, I'd say, just in this case alone.
Pokemon cards are having a moment. Searches on eBay Canada for Pokemon have increased by more than 160% in the last 5 years. Companies that deal in trading cards have also seen a spike in business. Jeff Follett works at 401 Games in Toronto. He says during the pandemic, when people were stuck at home, they started dusting off their old decks.
Yeah, we have a fair amount of people that go through and find their own collections in closets and end up wanting to sell some of the cards that they think are worth money. And we also get people that then find that Their interest in the hobby is reinvigorated upon finding their old collections and come in to also purchase more cards from us as well.
There are dozens of online forums where people talk about the money they spend collecting, and it can be a lot. This year, someone dropped 26 grand on a single card. What's pulling people back into the Pokemon vortex? It actually has a name. It's called the 30-year nostalgia cycle.
So we have a time in our lives when we enjoy playing with things, when we have carefree time, when we're having the most fun of our lives.
Sarah Wilner teaches marketing at Wilfrid Laurier University.
And as we get older, we hearken back to those times. And by the time we're an adult, we start thinking back when things are stressful, as they are very much so now in the world, to the times that we enjoyed the most. And this is also the time that we tend to have the greatest buying power. And often for many people, it's the time when they start their own families and they start thinking, gee, what do I want my kids to have that I got to experience when I was that age?
We still like the things we liked as kids. And it's not just Pokemon. Fanny packs are back. So is the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, if you do have a stash of old Pokemon cards you want to sell, Jeff Follett says you better have played with them gently as a kid.
That can really dictate the value of them, especially for these older cards. People are really looking for items that are in the best condition.
So if that shadowless Pikachu has been through the wash, or your little sister scribbled on your first edition Charizard, you probably can't sell them for much. But at least you still got them, right? And didn't make the same mistake as Daniel Doust. You mentioned you did end up selling your cards, maybe not getting the better deal.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. 13, 14 years old when I was too cool for Pokemon. Local flea market, $50 in my pocket. I was happy, but I'm sad about it now, trust me.
For CBC Radio, I'm Philip Drost.
Thanks very much, Philip. 11 minutes before 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. We're soon going to talk about the boycott of Loblaws making headlines, but first, also making headlines, outbreaks of avian influenza or H5N1. House Dr. Raj Bhardwaj spoke with the CBC's Marcy Marcusa about it after the show yesterday.
Good morning, Marcy.
So just remind us, what is H5N1 or bird flu?
So it's a strain of the influenza A virus that typically infects birds. That's why we call it bird flu. It gets both wild birds and farm birds like chickens, rarely infects people. And it's been around for decades that we know of. And there have been millions of documented cases in farmed birds in Canada and thousands in wild birds across the country. Occasionally, H5N1 influenza jumps from birds to mammals, and rarely it jumps to humans, either directly from birds or might go from birds through a non-human mammal to us. So it's making news now for a few notable reasons. So one is that this virus has been found in herds of dairy cows across the states. Two is that there's been at least one case of a symptomatic infection in a human related to this outbreak in cows. It was a case of conjunctivitis or pink eye in a farm worker in Texas who went on to test positive for H5N1 influenza. And then the third notable thing, viral particles have been found in milk for sale in the US. And that has a lot of people worried, maybe unnecessarily, unless you're into drinking raw unpasteurized milk, which was never a good idea anyway. But in Canada, it's a bit unclear. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency has said on social media that they're not testing milk, but they apparently are testing cows and haven't found any cases yet. But it's really not clear how extensive the testing is in Canada, and almost all scientists who work in emerging infectious disease who have been asked have said, yeah, it's probably not enough. We should be testing way more, including testing animals, testing milk, even testing wastewater monitoring on farms, and maybe even doing blood tests on farm workers to see if they have antibodies to H5N1, which would indicate that they have been exposed to this bird flu H5N1.
So can you elaborate a little bit more about why scientists are concerned about this?
Yeah, so the thing that makes this worrying to virus specialists and epidemiologists is that if this virus happens to randomly gain a genetic mutation that allows the virus to jump efficiently from human to human, which as far as we know it hasn't done yet, then that would mean that we have a whole new strain of influenza virus that we would all be susceptible to. Our influenza vaccines don't cover for H5N1 infections. Our immune systems haven't seen it before. And it's different enough from other influenza viruses that it could cause worse infections with higher death rates. Now, there have been known cases of H5N1 in humans before. There have been about 900 documented cases over the past 20 or so years. And around 50% of people died of their infection. So that's worrisome. Now, the actual fatality rate, most scientists are pretty sure that it would be a lot lower than that, because there were probably people who had the virus and recovered and weren't tested, or who had the virus and didn't even know that they had it because their symptoms might have been very mild. But the other worrisome thing, the other thing that scientists are worried about, is that influenza viruses are particularly good at picking up bits of genetic information from other influenza viruses. So the worry is that if an H5N1 virus gets into a person who's also infected with an influenza virus, just a regular seasonal influenza, that is already adapted to traveling from person to person, then some random exchange of genetic material could happen, and it might make it more likely that the remixed version of H5N1 could be better at infecting people or being transmitted from person to person. That's the kicker. That's the worrisome part. Not necessarily the current situation, but because of the potential for the situation to get worse. And that's why scientists are calling for much more information sharing and much more detailed information gathering about this outbreak in cows, including things like, testing farm workers and things like that.
So if this bird flu does jump to humans, is there a vaccine?
So good news if you're a bird. There is an effective commercially available vaccine for H5N1 for birds. The U.S. government has a strategic pre-pandemic stockpile of existing H5 human vaccine, but Canada doesn't, and it's not something that most countries have. We do have apparently first dibs contracts to buy vaccine if it's needed, kind of like we did when the COVID vaccines were being developed. We were one of the first countries to get them. But it would take months to make the number of doses needed if H5 influenza started to spread easily from human to human. And we would probably need 2 doses per person to be properly protected, just like we did with the COVID vaccines. We needed the first dose to sort of introduce our immune systems to it, and then a second dose to boost ourselves. There's no mRNA influenza vaccine yet, but there are human trials underway already. So, in terms of where we are and how quickly we could ramp up, it's a different situation than it was with COVID.
Now, you mentioned the virus was detected in milk in the U.S. Is this a food safety concern?
So I don't think it's a food safety concern, but it is a concern. So first of all, the tests that found virus particles in store-bought milk, they're probably picking up genetic debris from dead virus, but viral debris isn't contagious. But it's interesting for a couple of reasons. So number one, the rules in the U.S. and in Canada are that only milk from healthy cows is allowed to enter the food supply chain. And yet, they found those viral particles in milk being sold on store shelves in the U.S. And they found it in like 1 of 5 samples, like 20% of samples that they tested across the nation. So that implies that maybe the infected cows aren't showing enough symptoms to be identified as infected. Or there's way more infected cows than we know of, at least in the States. So the U.S. announced broader testing last week. I'm sure we're going to see the numbers of infections and the states where those infections are, it's going to go up in the coming weeks as we gather more information. I'm still not super concerned from a food safety point of view, though, as long as you're drinking pasteurized milk. So pasteurization is a process of heating the milk to a high enough temperature for long enough to kill germs in the milk. influenza viruses are not super hardy viruses. And the thinking is that pasteurizing milk will kill any influenza in the milk, since it for sure kills other hardier germs. Now, there haven't been any published studies about H5N1 virus and milk pasteurization specifically, but the science is sound. So even though specific data aren't there yet. So I'm not super worried about sort of food supply chain worries and things like that, but we still have a lot to learn about this outbreak. And the longer we take to understand it with more testing and more information sharing and to control it, if possible, the more time the virus has to accumulate those random genetic variations. And if it does, make that jump from cows or birds or some other animal to human, and then from human to human, then we're going to be talking about this again.
All right, Dr. Bardwaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That's House Dr. Raj Bardwaj speaking with Information Radio host Marcy Marcusa yesterday morning. About 2.5 minutes before the top of the hour, and over to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Heather Wells joining us now with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, remote healthcare workers in Winnipeg have been told they need to prepare to spend more time in the office this summer. Shared Health and the WRHA say all remote workers in Winnipeg will need to spend at least half their hours in the office starting July. The Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals describes the memos as sweeping edicts. Those memos came out Monday. You won't be hearing this chant until next season. Thousands at the Whiteout Street Party last night, leaving disappointed after the Winnipeg Jets make an early exit from the NHL playoffs. And while it may have been, according to the coach and players, the best game Winnipeg played in the playoffs, the Jets still fall 6-3 to the Avs. So that is it. We are out. We'll hear more in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Yes, call our listener line with how you're managing today, how you're dealing with that loss. 204-788-3205, 204-788-3205. You can find me on Instagram at Faith Fundal. We'd love to share it with our listeners. Lots to come in our next half hour. It is May, and thus marks the start of a nationwide Loblaws boycott. We'll hear details of that, and we'll also get a full look at your weather forecast and your commute. By the way, if you see any issues on the commute, call our commuter line, 204-788-3093, and we'll share with our listeners there. Goodbye to the folks watching on the television, but good news because we're continuing our stream on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Lots to come after World Report. Stay tuned.
Today on The Current.
The loon is also called the Great Northern Diver.
Mammal, bird, and fish populations around the world have been falling for years, but a new study points to conservation successes in 2 out of every 3 projects to try to help species survive and thrive. Coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young.
Free Palestine!
Fireworks explode in an encampment set up on the UCLA campus. School officials say the encampment is unlawful. Violent clashes overnight continued into the early morning hours between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli protesters. Los Angeles police officers in riot gear were called in to deal with protesters. The demonstrators want the university to divest from Israel-related entities. Reporter Steve Futterman joins me now from the university campus. And Steve, what is happening there now?
Well, right now, the police have completely cleared this area adjacent to the encampment where all the problems were taking place. I would say at one point there were maybe 200-300 protesters here, mostly counter-protesters, but there were some from the pro-Palestinian group in here, and they were basically mixing it up. They were yelling at each other. There were a number of fistfights. At one point, there were some fireworks set off, it looked like, and there was some irritant set off at one point. I don't think it was tear gas, most likely pepper spray, and it was basically chaos for a brief period, for maybe a half hour, 45 minutes or so, when it was its most intense. And that's why the police eventually came in. They pushed everyone out. There were, as far as I can tell, there were no arrests. But they've cleared this area out right now, and the encampment continues. And I believe police are going to remain here the rest of the day.
What's been the reaction of some of the protesters?
Well, I think many of them expected that there would be arrests. I spoke to some of them who said they were actually surprised that the authorities were basically nonviolent. They were basically pushing the protesters in the direction of the exit. And that's basically all the authorities did. They moved in, they had their riot gears on, they had their batons pulled, but they never really used them. There were a couple moments where there were some arguments back and forth, but it really never got into a situation where we were going to have arrests. They never really issued a complete warning. They didn't have to because the protesters just moved when they were being pushed away.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Freelance reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. In New York, Columbia University's Hamilton Hall is now clear of pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Police carrying shields burst into the building overnight. They entered through a second-story window and made dozens of arrests. Police officers removed all of the protesters who took over Hamilton Hall on Monday night. Some demonstrators shouted shame as the police started making arrests. The tent encampment at Columbia has also been cleared. The university president says she has asked the police to remain on campus until May 17th. That is 2 days after graduation. She asked officers to make sure the encampments are not reestablished. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is meeting with senior officials in Israel. He is trying to get a ceasefire deal with Hamas in place, but the two sides are far apart on a key sticking point, whether this deal would end the war completely. Abby Kudasan has more.
The loud blare of sirens outside the Kuwaiti hospital in Rafah, only matched by the screams of relatives inside as medics work to keep a young boy alive following Israeli airstrikes. More than 35,400 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza as Israel retaliates for Hamas's attacks on October 7th, when militants killed about 1,200 people and took about 240 hostages.
Bring your children home today.
In Tel Aviv, demonstrators urged Washington to help secure a deal that frees their relatives. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken tried to reassure them.
Bringing your loved ones home is at the heart of everything we're trying to do.
Rotem Cooper is desperate for his elderly father to be released and is relying on the U.S. president to make it happen.
And we're asking him to apply whatever Hamas, but also to the Israeli Prime Minister.
Benjamin Netanyahu says the Rafah ground assault will happen even if hostages are released. That appeases the hardliners in his coalition government, but it could mean further condemnation from allies. The New York Times says several Israeli officials have told the paper Netanyahu is worried about a possible international arrest warrant in his name. Israel's President Isaac Herzog alluded to those reports.
Our enemies and other elements are trying to undermine the entire process by using international legal forums.
An international criminal court warrant could be linked to charges of preventing aid from entering Gaza and the IDF's disproportionate response to Hamas's unprecedented attack. The ICC has not commented. Abby Kualasan, CBC News, London.
Haiti's newly installed Transitional Council has chosen a former sports minister as its prime minister. The surprise move comes as Haiti tries to establish a stable new government. Gang violence has overwhelmed the country. Fritz Belizaire was chosen to replace current interim prime minister Michel Patrick Boisvert. It is May Day, and around the world, workers and activists are celebrating and marching. Some are a celebration of human rights. Others are protesting labor policies. In Turkey, police detained May Day protesters trying to march on Taksim Square. All demonstrations have been banned in the square for several years now, but the leader of the main opposition party called for people to march there anyway. Hundreds of riot police with shields and water cannons blocked their path. The controversial Trans Mountain Expansion Pipeline officially begins operating today. It takes oil from Alberta's oil country to the BC coast. The pipeline feeds into a marine terminal in the Burnaby area, and a lot of people there are opposed to this project. Aaron Collins brings us this final day of stories from people who live along the line.
These things can only go out 2/3 full.
Elin Gibson looks out at an oil tanker parked in Burrard Inlet. The Burnaby resident worried about more ships at Trans Mountain's marine terminal here. The expanded facility will go from hosting about a tanker a week to a tanker a day.
If it hits one of those pylons, it will take out not our economy, but it'll take out the whole inlet.
Now complete, TMX will bring about 3 times the oil to Trans Mountain's tank farm on Burnaby Mountain. Next to that facility, protesters built a traditional Coast Salish watch house.
Tsleil-Waututh refused to agree to this pipeline being here. That's what this watch house was about.
Jim Layden is the elder at the watch house. First Nations in the area still oppose the expansion.
Everyone says it's not if, but when. When there's a spill, we're done.
Peter Ross agrees, and it's a big problem, according to the scientists with the Rain Coast Conservation Foundation.
We simply cannot afford a spill in inland waters, in the Salish Sea, in the Strait of Georgia, and the approaches to Vancouver.
Ross says any accident would be devastating for killer whales and other marine life in the area. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Burnaby.
Canada's new dental care plan for seniors begins today. 1.7 million people aged 70 and up are eligible for the program. Eventually, it will cover 1 in 4 Canadians without private dental insurance. But as Marina von Stackelberg reports, some dental care providers are not included right away, and there's still a cost.
I have not signed up.
Dr. Brock Nicolucci of the Ontario Dental Association says many dentists like him are waiting to see how the Canadian dental care plan actually rolls out before signing up. So far, about 5,000 oral health care providers have registered. That's less than 1 in 5.
We want to be able to treat our patients that are eligible for this Canadian dental care plan. But unfortunately, with these roadblocks in the way, we're having a hard time signing on to this.
The federal government says it has worked to simplify the program. Providers can directly bill the plan without officially registering, but that won't be an option until July. Some services that require pre-authorization, like crowns or partial dentures, won't start being covered until half a year from now. Yura Wojcicki is with the Denturists Association of Canada.
For denturists, we were hoping to do it all at once, but we understand that some of the procedures that we would do will have to be delayed until November.
Francine Trudeau is with the Canadian Dental Hygienists Association.
One of the things that we've been advocating is for the plan to cover more preventive services.
Dental care providers say it's important patients understand this isn't necessarily free dental care. The federal government will pay a certain amount, but your dentist can charge you the difference based on their own fees. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in Studio 15 at Portage and Spence in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. We're going to get reaction from an organization helping people with their taxes, which has found millions of dollars for folks in returns this season alone. Stay tuned for that conversation. Also in studio, a woman from Saging First Nation has been selected to participate in the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada pageant. We'll hear from her about what this all means. First, as you've been hearing, frustration over food prices as Canadians vow to boycott Loblaws. We'll hear from a professor to see how it might impact or what impact boycotts have on large grocery chains. It's coming up here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1 and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Good morning. And good morning as well to Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk with a look at news headlines. Hello.
Hi there. Well, some people in Peguis First Nation have been forced to live in a condemned school because of a housing crisis. Even though the Interlake community did not flood this year, the lingering effects of previous floods remain. Hundreds of homes have been condemned. Almost 800 people are displaced. And yesterday, Peguis has declared a state of emergency because of that housing crisis. So we'll take you to Peguis coming up. Police in Edmonton believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg at Christmas may be connected to a series of arsons and other shootings in Alberta. We'll hear that story as well in our next local news at 7:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. If you're just waking up and you didn't see the game, you might be having a whole bunch of feels. Let us know how you're feeling and how you're managing. Call our listener line 204-788-3205 after the Jets lost the game last night. Some folks, though, are celebrating because I understand that it is Oscar's 10th birthday today, getting a message to wish them a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Oscar. So maybe that's something that you're doing, is to celebrate. Abby Adeyemi, is it a celebration outside for the weather?
Still cloudy. I guess that's that's on the menu list for today. Just cloudy. It's 6 degrees in Winnipeg. We're expecting a mix of clouds and a chance of showers this morning, and then it's going to be rolling into the afternoon period. The conditions should improve as we head into late afternoon period, and then we'll be seeing a high of 13. Tonight's forecast, actually, the skies will clear up initially, but the clouds will return overnight along with some fog patches. So you need to watch out for these fog patches if you're out and about late tonight. And if we look into tomorrow, the cloudy skies we're talking about overnight will definitely make the appearance, and then rain is expected tomorrow morning, bringing about 10 to 15 millimeters of rainfall. So don't forget your umbrellas, and fog patches will then be dissipating. Across board in the province, it's more like cloudy skies. Brandon is currently seeing light rain at 3 degrees. Thompson is at 0. Churchill is cloudy at -3. Dauphin is at 3 degrees, expecting showers to start anytime soon. Gimli is also expecting some showers at 4 degrees. Steinbeck and Morris both at 5 degrees and expecting showers. So it's more like showers clearing up, then rain returning. That's what the forecast looks like. And then we'll be seeing temperatures ranging in the midst of teens during the day and then dip into around 7 at night. That's what it looks like today.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
That's Abby Adeyemi, our show technician today. Corey Funk, our studio director, also watching The Commute. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, very quiet commute so far. I imagine maybe there's a few people maybe staying home today after last night's game. But if you do see something going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll let folks know what you're seeing. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
14 and a half minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, I'm Faith Fundal. Your grocery budget may be getting tighter and smaller as prices remain high. One grocer has been in the spotlight, Loblaws. It is the parent company of Superstore, Shoppers Drug Mart, and No Frills. Now, there has been many stories of folks across the country saying they're planning to boycott Loblaws' own stores. It emerged out of a Reddit group. The page now has more than 60,000 members. The movement has grown, gaining traction on social media sites like X and TikTok. On the program yesterday, Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa spoke with Jeff Gobiel, a local man taking part in the boycott. Here's his response when she asked him what he'll do if the boycott doesn't make a difference.
If my moving to smaller independent grocers has no effect on anything, for everyone participating at large, if it has no effect on anything, then I guess it almost comes down to me, how I feel where I shop certain places. If I don't feel good popping into Safeway, popping into Superstore, then I'll just continue to shop at the small grocers. They're cool people.
Sylvain Charlebois is a professor in food distribution and policy at Dalhousie University in Halifax, and Sylvain joins us now on Zoom. Hello there. Welcome.
Good morning.
What do you think of what Jeff Gobiel had to say? Even if it does nothing, he's going to continue doing his part. How big of a deal are these sorts of things? Boycotts, are they pretty common?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. In the food industry, we've actually seen calls to boycott Loblaw many times, but I would say that this one is probably the most successful one in terms of getting the media's attention, particularly, I would say. The group appears to be incredibly aggressive, I must say, because they're going after experts, they're going after media, they're actually going after me as well. So it's kind of unusual to see that happen. Boycotts are good for democracy, absolutely. They're designed to send out a message. I think the person who just spoke about supporting independent grocers, to me, I think is actually a good strategy. If boycotters would have called me and asked me for my advice, boycotting just one grocer that occupies 29% of the market, not even a third, when food prices have gone up everywhere, like everywhere, and Loblaw has become a mammoth of a company because it responded to the American invasion many years ago. And that American invasion was led by Costco and Walmart. So I've always wondered why boycotters aren't aiming at Walmart and Costco, American companies, because they're the ones that really force Canadian grocers to consolidate. So there's lots of unknowns. And to me, the boycott was really a missed opportunity to really inform the public in terms of what the real issues are in the food industry.
Why do you think then Loblaws has been the target? Why is this something that folks seem to have been able to be captured by and really feel?
I must say, I mean, when you look at the last year or so, Loblaw's PR strategy has been a complete disaster. I mean, when you think about the 50% discount kerfuffle, the Manulife disaster as well, anti-theft measures in stores, nobody understands why, corporate bonuses, I could go on and on and on, and constantly Loblaws has failed to read the room. So I absolutely understand and I sympathize with people who are angry at the banner. And of course, we all know who the former CEO was, Galen Weston, whereas with other stores, nobody really knows who the CEOs are. So a very easy target, but to me, it's the wrong target in terms of the purpose of the boycott. Loblaw is Loblaw a problem? Of course it is. There are issues with Loblaw, but it's not because of what goes on in the store. It's what goes on within the supply chain with suppliers.
So do you see a boycott like this being effective? I mean, if Loblaws has 29% of the market share, what is the math? How much would need to? How many people would have to stop doing this for it to be effective and make a difference?
Yeah. So this Reddit group was created back in October of 2023, and just this morning, I'm not sure if you probably didn't have the time to look at financial results that were posted just a few minutes ago by Loblaw. Revenues are up, profits are up, and the share price is up. So, I mean, so far this particular group has not impacted Loblaw's financial performance. If anything, it actually has improved it. And so, again, I do think that if you want to make a boycott work, focus on real problems. And the real problem right now is that Loblaw and Walmart, in particular, have too much power, and they're putting that power and that pressure on manufacturers, lessening competition that you and I can benefit from. It's an obscure concept. People don't get it because they understand the grocery store. But the real issue, of course, is the supply chain. And that's why Loblaw and Walmart are against more discipline and the code of conduct that we all been talking about for the last decade or so.
So how do we then impact this? How do you change it so that food products, including perishable items, are actually not as expensive or significantly less expensive than they are now?
The good news is that things are actually improving. And this is the other thing I would tell boycotters. You kind of missed the boat in terms of inflation, because right now inflation is below 2%, and it's likely going to drop even more in April and May. In fact, actually, to be honest, we are seeing food prices that are lower than last year. So I would have actually organized a boycott, say, 3 months ago or even 5 months ago. Then you would have had the public really supporting the movement. But right now, we're looking at a much better summer and fall, and you'll see probably a grocery store that is easier to manage for people on a tight budget.
What are folks saying? You said that you're also being targeted. How are they characterizing your part in all of this?
Have you been on the Reddit page yourself?
I wanted to sleep last night, so no, I didn't read through it.
That's a good strategy, actually. If you go on the Reddit page, you'll see the picture of Galen Weston and me as well, because I've been critical of their approach. I absolutely do support boycotts. I mean, if you, as a consumer, feel it's important to boycott a company, go right ahead. It's a democracy. But make sure it's logical. Make sure it's coherent so people can actually learn from the movement. And really, I fail to see the logic in this approach.
Do you think there are more folks like who we heard from Winnipeg about making a choice to go to independent grocers? Do you think we'll see many folks like that?
I've been to Winnipeg many times. There are excellent independent grocers out there. They don't get the attention they deserve. And frankly, again, going back to boycotters, if I were to design the boycott, if I believed in the boycott itself, I would basically boycott all big box stores and encourage people to go to independent grocers as much as possible, because they've been suffering because of the American invasion and the consolidation that we've seen in recent years.
Sylvain Charlebois, Professor and Director for Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Thanks for the time today. Take good care.
Take care, Faith. Bye-bye.
Instant coffee that makes for a better marriage.
Harvey, want anything special for your birthday?
Just a decent cup of coffee.
A mother-in-law's critical eye.
Same eyes, same freckles, same ring around the collar.
And doctors recommending what?
What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?
Ads that could never, ever run today on Under the Influence with Terry O'Reilly. Thursday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
23 minutes after 7 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Now, if you're a fan of The Simpsons, you might remember a certain sign that reads, "Now entering Winnipeg. We were born here. What's your excuse?" Winnipeg singer-songwriter The Secret Beach has borrowed the slogan for the name of his new album. And from that, this is The Secret Beach with Blame Manny.
I was waking up in the morning. I was doing it on my own. I was getting to work at a good time. I had a happy family in my home. In another world there was a Manny. He was leading a life of crime. I'd never seen him before until one day he robbed a store while I was standing in line. He pulled a gun and we all made a mad dash. Instead of running, you just gave him the cash. You were the witness, I was being suspected. It really didn't go the way I expected. You could have put the blame on Manny, but you put it on me. You could have put the blame on Manny, but you put it on me. And so they took me down to the station, got my fingerprints and scanned my eyes. They wrote down all of my information, made some calls and locked me up inside. They said they checked the video cameras, but they forgot to press record that day. I just kept thinking of Manny. I couldn't believe that he got away. I was just some guy, you were the store clerk. I guess I get why you were confused. You must have seen me standing behind him, thinking I was part of the ruse. You could have put the blame on Manny, but you put it on me.
Out of Winnipeg, that was The Secret Beach with Blame Manny. And if only we could blame Manny, eh, Scott Regier from your CBC Sports Desk?
Gotta blame somebody, yeah.
Disappointing, right? Not just because the team was eliminated, and of course, because it's how it happened.
Yeah, absolutely, Faith. Very head-scratching stuff. The lack of defense for the Jets, right? I mean, Winnipeg had the stingiest team defensively during the regular season, tied for the fewest goals allowed, and then, well, the playoffs happened. They are the first team, the Jets, in NHL playoff history, allowing 5 or more goals in each of their first 5 contests. And given all of that, you'd expect the head coach, Rick Bowness, to come out with a rant like we saw last year when their playoff run ended. That lasted, last year when he talked to the media, 2 minutes, I think, before he walked off in a huff. Well, that was not the way Bowness addressed the press this time.
Listen, this is a proud group, and it's a tight group, and they're hurting right now. But that's not a bad thing. They should hurt. Last year, there's a different hurt. We didn't battle, right? Tonight, we battled. You still have to take that game to another level. You do. Playoffs are a whole different animal, man. And if you can't raise your game to that intensity, you don't win the Stanley Cup. I've been there 4 times. You know how hard it is to get there? It's hard.
It's going to be interesting, Faith, to see if Bowness is going to be around for another attempt at a cup run. It is up to the Jets front office to pick up the final year of his contract. When asked whether he envisions himself coaching Winnipeg next season, Bowness responded with, quote unquote, "We just lost in the playoffs." Elsewhere, the Leafs staved off elimination, Faith, against the Bruins, while the Canucks failed to close out the Predators. Edmonton can be the first Canadian team to advance tonight when they play against the Kings. Do we throw our lot behind another Canadian team, or is it all just too soon?
It's too soon.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Don't worry.
All right.
The Bombers, how'd they fare in last night's CFL draft?
Right, we can just focus on football now.
Exactly.
The Bombers, during the draft, so they had the 8th overall selection, but they wheeled and dealed with the Stampeders, sent them that pick with a 3rd-round selection as well. And in return, Winnipeg had the 13th and 14th overall selections last night, and they went offense with both of them. With the 13th, they took a big receiver, Kevin Clarius, who played at the University of Connecticut and could provide some depth behind Nick Dembski and Drew Wolodarski. Then with that 14th pick, they went with running back Michael Chris Ike out of the University of Delaware. He had the fastest times in the sprints at the CFL Combine. So he's also done a lot of work special teams-wise. So Michael Chris Ike's certainly going to find a place for the Bombers, who begin rookie camp, believe it or not, a week from today, Faith.
Going to come soon. Lots going on in baseball on and off the diamond. What are you watching?
Well, on the diamond, the Jays lost to Kansas City, Faith, thus falling below 500 on the season, while off it, Bees, Faith, delayed the start of the game between Arizona and the Dodgers for 2 hours last night. Just before the first pitch, a swarm descended on the top of the protective netting behind home plate. Beekeeper Matt Hilton was called in, lifted 30 feet in the air to the post where the bees had settled. Hilton, who had been about to watch his 6-year-old son play a baseball game when he got the call, sprayed and vacuumed the bees away, prompting a standing ovation while this played on the stadium speakers. Here's to you, Matt Hilton. Jets could have used a hero last night, but never mind. No need to dwell.
None of them have
Arizona
any...
won, too, by the way.
All right. Okay, I know. Thank you.
Yeah, I am trying.
We'll talk
You're
soon.
welcome.
Scott Regier from your CBC National Sports Desk. We are going to manage through, and we want to know how you're managing through this morning. Call our listener line, 204-788-3205. You might be disappointed, probably disappointed, but you might also have encouraging words for our listeners out there. Stay tuned. We'll play your thoughts throughout the morning. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Lots to come after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 7:30. It's May, and it is still a little cooler than seasonal. A high today of 13. We start the day with clouds, slight chance of a shower, and then clearing this afternoon. Police in Alberta believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg on Christmas Eve is connected to a rash of extortion incidents targeting South Asian home builders in Edmonton. Staff Sergeant Eric Stewart says an SUV approached a home in the Maples in northwest Winnipeg and fired several shots at that home. Police say no one was hurt, but one bullet narrowly missed someone inside. Stewart says the homeowner had been threatened and extorted for money before the shooting.
There's only one event to our knowledge that's connected in this relation to the shooting. Not to give too many details, but we believe the complainant in that has connections to Edmonton and this extortion arson series.
Stewart says police believe the homeowner has a connection to a home builder in Edmonton. Edmonton police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for a 19-year-old suspect who they believe has gone to India. Peguis First Nation has called a state of emergency. Even though the Fisher River largely stayed within its banks this spring, the Interlake Cree and Ojibwe community is demanding immediate action over severe shortage of housing. A condemned former school is being used as a homeless shelter. 8 people are living there, including Jace Garson and his partner.
This is a zone that everybody doesn't really like because it always leaks from the ceilings, and then we're living in a condemned house here. This is not like a real house.
The roof leaks, the walls have mold. Garson says he can't take his 3 daughters to live with them. They are now in Fisher River with his sister. Hundreds of homes have been condemned in Peguis because of repeated flooding. Almost 800 people there are displaced. Remote healthcare workers in Winnipeg have been told they need to prepare to spend more time in the office this summer. Shared Health and the WRHA say all remote workers in Winnipeg will need to spend at least half of their hours in the office starting in July. Staff memos went out on Monday saying the changes align with ones made by the Crown corporations and other public sector organizations. Jason Linkletter, president of the Manitoba Association of Healthcare Professionals, describes the memos as sweeping edicts. Well, it has now come to an end, but there was violence overnight on the UCLA campus in Los Angeles. It was a scene as pro-Palestinian demonstrators clashed with counter-protesters on the school grounds. The LAPD riot squad was called in, and eventually peace was restored. Here at home, McGill University is asking Montreal police for help to try to clear a protest camp from the school in downtown Montreal. Fabrice Labeau is the deputy provost of the student life at McGill.
We've asked the police to intervene after we've tried ourselves through our own protocols. We know that the police have the expertise in resolving such situations. They've started their own process. Our priority continues to be the safety and the well-being of all the community members, but at the same time, we also know that the police will also try to find a peaceful resolution.
McGill has released a video which it says shows some protesters using anti-Semitic language. 2 McGill students say the camp makes them feel unsafe. They are asking a judge to grant an emergency injunction to dismantle it. A judge could rule on that injunction request later today. You can hear more national and international news on World Report at 8. Happy days could be here again for fans of Happyland Pool. The outdoor facility in St. Boniface had been slated for closure in the city's 2024 budget, but a group calling itself Friends of Happyland Pool has now raised $70,000. The group's Teresa Quick says they want to give that money to the city to keep the pool open for at least 1 more year.
We're hoping to continue this for many years. If we manage to keep it open this year, it will give us some time to work on a solution to saving it for the future years.
The motion to consider using the funding to keep Happyland open for this season is expected to go to the city's Community Services Committee next week. Well, here's something you won't be hearing again until next season. Thousands of Winnipeg Jets fans at the Whiteout Street Party last night, but it was not to be. The Jets eliminated in 5 games. Fans like Shasta Chartrand feeling the emotion of that loss.
Sad ending to a great season, and I really feel for Hellebuck. I really do. He's the one I cry for the most.
Well, Connor Hellebuck made 27 saves last night, but the Jets still fell 6-3 to the Colorado Avalanche. The Jets were right in it, though, even at the beginning of the 3rd period.
Shot from Toffoli!
Tyler Toffoli on ESPN. The Jets are now, though, the first Canadian team eliminated from the NHL playoffs. Jets head coach Rick Bowness says it was his team's best game of the playoffs.
I'm proud of the effort of the guys. They fought right till the end. It just didn't go our way tonight, but there's growth. We had a great regular season, and again, learn from tonight.
So a learning loss. Meanwhile, the Jets' Josh Morrissey says he hopes the players feel that sting into the summer and come back better next season. You can find more on last night's game and loss, as well as other Manitoba news. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fondal here in for Marcy Marcusa on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Maybe you're taking that same approach of, yeah, I'm proud, disappointed, but proud. Call our listener line with how you're managing today, 2047-883205. How are you dealing with that loss from last night? Perhaps it's behind you. Let us know. 2047-883205. I know it's too soon, but we'll share thoughts. Abby Adiemi, the weather, is it going to help distract us?
Just look outside. The cloud will tell you what the people feel. It's cloudy outside. It's not
true.
sunny.
It's true.
It's not a sunny feel. It's cloudy outside. Still, the mercury hasn't moved much. We're still at 6 degrees in the city. Expect a mix of sun and clouds. Expect a mix of clouds actually today. And the chance of showers this morning into the afternoon period, and then it's going to improve, and we'll see a high of 13. Tonight will clear up and then give way for some clouds. If we head to Brandon is currently at 3 degrees. We're seeing some light rain over there. We will see cloudy skies this morning after that rain tapers off in the afternoon, and then there's going to be some clearing, and we'll be seeing a high of 13. In Thompson, it's 0 and cloudy. Chance of flurries this morning, heading to a high of +4. Churchill is at -3 with mostly cloudy skies, heading to a high of 1. Dauphin is at 3 degrees and cloudy. A few morning showers experiencing over there, and we'll be seeing a high of 6. Gimli is at 4 degrees and cloudy. Chance of showers this morning, reaching a high of 7. Steinbach currently 5 and with cloudy skies. Expect some showers this morning, which would clear up later, and we'll see a high of 15. Lastly, in Morris, it's 5 degrees and cloudy. Few showers this morning, and also clearing, high of 15. Cloudy and damp morning across board, and we should be expecting some clear nights and potential fog tomorrow morning in the city. Right now, we're heading to a high of 13.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi is our technician here on the program. Hello as well to the folks watching us on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. And hello as well to Corey Funk, our studio director today. The commute, is it something to be okay with, like the game last night?
Yes.
I tried to find a way to
Yes,
segue.
there's a sad silence among the streets. The commuter line has been quiet. I think a lot of people have booked today off, or maybe called in sick.
Might still be sleeping.
Yes. But if you see anything going on out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, let me know. Give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
We're at 20 minutes, just about 20 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fondal. Don't want to panic you, but yesterday was the deadline to file your taxes. For many folks, tax season can be stressful, but the Canadian Muslims Women's Institute offers financial education for families. So far, it's helped with 800 tax returns and found millions of dollars in returns for people. Yasmin Ali is president of the board at the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute, and Yasmin joins us in studio. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Faith.
When I say millions, just how many millions would you say have you gotten found for folks this season?
This year we had $4 million back in refunds and benefits for our clients.
And then what's that roughly? I think $5,000 or so per person?
Well, roughly, we've done over 850 clients' taxes already, and we're still doing. They're still coming, because we can do taxes all year round. So, yes.
When you speak to a client and you say, by the way, we found this amount of money, I mean, what kind of reaction do you get from folks?
They are so amazed, and I just give you a quote from one of the clients. And the exact quote is, I got a refund of $7,967. This is the first time that I got this large amount of money in my entire life.
I mean, how does that feel when you read that out loud?
it feels so satisfying. It feels so great to be able to help people to get refunds, to put money back in their pockets, and help them to apply for benefits that they didn't know that they could get. One of them said that I didn't even know I could claim medication and donation expenses. So it really is a good feeling to be able to help others.
It can be quite confusing if you don't do this often. What made you start to do this? Why did you want to help folks in this way?
Well, we started a program funded by Seed Winnipeg called Financial Empowerment. And in this program, we talk about things like money management, budget, the banking system, and so on. And as an offshoot of that, they suggested we do this tax filing service. So we got trained, our staff got trained by the Community Financial Counseling Service, and every year they do refresher courses. And our clients are newcomers, refugees, low-income people, and they can't afford to go to other places and get taxes and to pay for it, right? So we thought this would be a great service to offer, and we did. And we started off in 2020, and now between 2020 and 2023, we've done more than 1,765 clients. So it's a service that they really are appreciative of, and they feel comfortable to come to us because these clinics are done in many languages. The important thing is it's done in first language. Mm-hmm. So some of the languages that we do it in would be like Arabic, Tigrinya, Somali, Amharic, English, and we have interpretation like Ukrainian and anything else.
I mean, privileged me still gets stressed out when it comes to taxes, but I imagine that it is significantly more complex in terms of the emotions for someone, particularly when they're new. What have you seen from folks about how all of this impacts them, how they feel about all of this?
Well, just some of them don't even know that they have to file income tax. Remember, they're newcomers, right? So whether you're working or not, everybody's got to file their taxes, right? So it's very overwhelming for them to know what to do and who to go to. So just starting off as being clients and accessing our other services as a family resource center, they feel comfortable. It makes them calm. They know that they can come to us, and the trust that they have in us to be able to do this for them and get their refunds and get their taxes done. It's very a great feeling for them.
I said the deadline was yesterday. Are you still helping folks who may not have been able to make the deadline?
Yes, we still are, because we can file back taxes as well. And if you don't have to pay taxes, it's okay, right? There's no penalty, right? So yes, we will continue to do this.
Thank you for sharing space and talking about this, and it's very nice to meet you. Take good care.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. Yasmin Ali, President of the Board at the Canadian Muslim Women's Institute.
It's been a little while since I've seen either of my folks. We'd sit around just making jokes about the glory days. Sometimes it's hard to smile, 'cause things don't seem to run like we hoped. We jumped the gun, I say, on darkest days. Countless hours of road I know, a little bit longer I take things slow. One more stop at the Texaco, a few more miles and I'll be home. One more lovely night in a room full of perfect strangers. This crazy world may be full of danger, but here don't feel that way. These ones will remember, so grateful for the time we've had, and hate to say goodbye to the friends we've made. Countless take things slow. One more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home. Hold my hand in prayer and hope. I get there safe and take things slow. Just one more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home. It's been a little while since I've seen either of my folks. We'll sit around just making jokes till the summer ends. Countless hours the road I know. A little bit longer I take things slow. One more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home. Hold my hand in prayer and hope. I get there safe and take things slow. Just one more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home. Countless hours the road I know. A little bit longer I take things slow. Just one more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home. Hold my hand in prayer and hope. I get there safe and take things slow. Just one more stop at the Texaco. A few more miles and I'll be home.
That was Manitoba folk duo Two Crows for Comfort with A Few More Miles. We're at 12 and a half minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Hello as well to the folks watching on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. Good morning. Now, some folks are planning already their summer trips and outings, but one woman is going to fulfill a lifelong dream. Ocean Brer is a model and mother of two boys. She's from Saging First Nation, and she's also one of 29 contestants in the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada pageant happening in July inside Six Nations territory in southern Ontario. Ocean joins us in studio. Good morning. Hello.
Hello, good morning.
You came in here specifically wearing this beautiful ribbon skirt. Tell us more about your ribbon skirt.
So my ribbon skirt is actually an Ali's Ribbons original. She's a local Indigenous designer from Pequot First Nations. I've also had the privilege of modeling for her in New York Fashion Week and in a fashion show here in Winnipeg for Manitoba Tourism. And so I proudly wear the skirt that she made me a couple years ago.
For our folks watching online, would you mind just standing just to show your ribbon skirt here? Because it's so, I mean, there's so many layers to that. It sure is beautiful. Ocean, you posted on Instagram and you said that you are beyond excited. You write, "This is not just a personal journey for me, but a chance to showcase and represent for Treaty 1 territory on a national stage." Why is that important for you?
It's important because for a really long time, my people were not even allowed to be on TV. Mm-hmm. So representation is super important to be able to be proud of who I am, where I come from, and for all of my people, and to be that role model for our younger generations or current generations to like follow their dreams, to step into their light, and just be proud of who they are.
Well, what does that feel like? Because you're not just a role model; you actually have also been modeling. When you reconcile all those things, what sorts of feelings come up for you?
I want to cry. Sorry,
it's okay.
I guess it's a very deep sense of pride and for myself, and just knowing that like I really pushed myself. I went outside my comfort zone. You know, I've dismantled limiting beliefs that, you know, got in my way, that I thought I couldn't do these things. And I just feel happy, like content, but also very proud and humbled in a way, right? Because when you come from a place where you think that you can't do these things or they just seem out of reach, and then you do them and you're like, wow. Even for my experience in New York Fashion Week, like it took me weeks after even like really letting it sink in. Like I went there and I did that.
Has it sunk in? Yet?
It has.
Yeah.
It has now because I'm more comfortable with saying it and saying it with confidence and saying it with pride, And so, yeah, I mean, even with the pageant, that too, the acceptance of that, it took me a really long time to process. Like the very first day, I just couldn't comprehend it. I just kept saying, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, I can't believe it. Like, because there are so many applicants and there are so many amazing Indigenous women across Turtle Island. And to be graciously picked out of all of these women, it was like super humbling and just super shocking. I don't even know how to explain it other than that.
Well, where do you draw from? And for folks who might not be seeing right now, you actually have one of your sons here.
Yes.
Sneakily taking a video, taking photos. Hello. Where do you draw from? Is it from your family, from your two kids?
It's from, I feel like, a number of different things. Like, of course, my children, my two boys are my biggest reasons. They've really pushed me to want to create what we call in my language, Minmo Pimatazawin, which means a good life.
They're very proud of you.
Yes. And also my culture. I wasn't born into my culture. And so I had to go and find my culture and my identity throughout my older teenage years and young adult years. And just learning about my culture, the roles and responsibilities that I carry as an Anishinaabe woman became my core values. So to be that role model, to be that leader, to think about the 7 generations before and the 7 generations after. So when I do these things, it's not just for me, but it's for, my inner child. It's for my children. It's for my family. It's for my community. And overall, like, it then becomes the nations, because it's not only me doing these things, right? We inspire each other and we work with each other.
How do you even prepare for something like this?
I just been winging it.
Yeah. And how's it going so far?
I don't know. I think it's going good. I got my first sponsor, which is amazing. So an announcement will be coming soon on my contestant page on who my first sponsor is. She's been a person that I've worked with multiple times in the past. I'm very, very gracious of her help. And so, I'm just moving towards, trying to find sponsorships, donations, to be able to participate in the pageant, because, I got to think about makeup, wardrobe, pageant dresses.
There are a lot of things that you have to consider.
There is a lot of things. And so, after I got accepted and I'm really realizing all of these things, I was like, what did I get myself into? This is my first pageant, like, ever. And so lots of learning curves, but I think it's a beautiful process at the same time.
Do you have a sense yet of what you hope to accomplish? I mean, outside of winning, do you know yet what it is that you hope to take away from the competition and from the experience?
I feel like with the whole experience altogether, what really already grasped me is like empowerment, like that sense of being able to push forward, but also inspire others. Whether I win or not, that's all I really hope for, is to spark a light and for, other Indigenous women to see themselves in me and say, I can do that too. So I feel like that's what I really hope for, whether I win or not. But a big part of what I really want to showcase is like the things that I believe in, which is cultural revitalization, sense of identity, strong foundation of who you are in spirituality and sisterhood. Yeah.
I don't know if you say break a leg. I know with performances you do, but thank you for representing Saging, and good luck, I guess.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you soon. Take good care.
Thank you.
Ocean Brer is a model and mother of 2 boys from Saging First Nation. She is one of 29 contestants in the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada pageant.
I'm Janet Stewart. A summit on plastic pollution wrapped up Tuesday in Ottawa. As countries, companies, and ecologists work to wrestle out an agreement, we go grassroots and ask you, how can we use and discard less plastic? Join us for our call-in conversation Wednesday on Radio Noon. Weigh in now at 204-788-3797.
Mega laughs, mega shows recorded for CBC Gem, and at least 5 comedians per show. That's mega value for your money. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival is back April 30th to May 5th, and CBC is a proud sponsor. Catch Canadian performers Anne Pornell from The Great Canadian Baking Show, Lauren Ash from Superstore, and live tapings of The Debaters. The Winnipeg Comedy Festival, uplifting Canadian comedy. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
4 minutes before 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal. Over to our CBC Winnipeg local news desk, and Heather Wells joining us now with a look at news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, police in Edmonton believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg may be connected to a series of arsons and other shootings in Alberta. South Asian home builders have been targeted in Edmonton. The Winnipeg shooting happened Christmas Eve. Edmonton police say several family members were in that Maples area home, and one bullet narrowly missed someone inside. People in St. Boniface are pooling their resources to help save their community's outdoor pool. The Friends of Happyland Pool have raised more than $70,000 in less than a month. This comes after the city said it couldn't afford to operate that facility. A motion to consider using that money to keep Happyland open for this season is expected to go to a city committee next week. I'll be back with more Manitoba news at 8:30.
I see what you did there. Didn't just
Pooling,
wash off. Thank you.
I love the puns.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. We are expecting chance of showers this morning and this afternoon, but it will clear as the day progresses with a temperature high of 13 degrees. Thanks for letting us know about a crash at Wellington and Barrie. There's a crash there that's knocked down a traffic standard. Lights are operating, but the southbound curb lane is blocked, so use caution as you pass emergency vehicles. No delays, though, but just be aware of those emergency vehicles. Again, at Wellington and Barrie, a crash knocking down a traffic standard. If you see issues on your commute this morning, call our traffic line 204-788-3093, 204-788-3093. I'm Faith Fundal in for Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1 and streaming on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream. Still to come, we got to do it. A full post-mortem of last night's Jets game. We've been eliminated from the playoffs after losing Game 5 to Colorado. So what went wrong? A conversation with the Athletic reporter Murat Atesh in our next half hour. Also, Mike is Bike Everywhere Month. So what do? Send the CBC's Corey Funk on his bike to hear what the Green Action Centre has planned. That's coming up in our next half hour after World Report. Stay tuned.
Today on Q.
Romance novels were once something you'd see at the grocery store with titles like Lust on the High Seas. Emily Henry is a best-selling author credited with cracking the modern romance novel. She'll be here to tell you how she did it and why you should still believe in true love.
A love story is a really good way to force characters through intense transformation.
Q with Tom Power. This morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
Mammal, bird, and fish populations around the world have been falling for years, but a new study points to conservation successes in 2 out of every 3 projects to try to help species survive and thrive. Coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young.
Hey, stop!
Violence broke out this morning on the University of California, Los Angeles campus. Rival protests began overnight, and a pro-Palestinian encampment was deemed illegal by school officials. There were several fights between pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli demonstrators. Eventually, officers with California Highway Patrol and the LAPD moved in and cleared most of those protesters out of the area. But this UCLA alumnus says given the heightened tensions, the university needs to stay vigilant.
It's going to be a black eye for themselves. It's going to be a black eye for the neighbors. It's going to be a black eye for the professors. Everybody, you better step up before this gets worse. This is a warning sign.
Reporter Steve Futterman is at the campus and he joins me now. Steve, the university has declared the encampment illegal. How long do you think these tents and protesters will be allowed to stay?
I mean, that's the big question right now. Will they give them a deadline? Will they just move in? We thought perhaps tonight that this would be part two of what happened here, that the police would move in, tell the encampment people that they had to leave, but that has not happened, at least so far. I don't know really what the administration is going to do. If they do try to clear the encampment, one would think that it might not be that peaceful, and that's something that the UCLA administration would like to avoid. They don't want the optics of violence on the campus. So far, they've been basically able to avoid it. So I don't know what they're going to say today, but I think they're going to possibly come up with a deadline to clear the encampment, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Steve Futterman reporting in Los Angeles. In New York, Columbia University's Hamilton Hall is now clear of pro-Palestinian demonstrators. Police carrying shields burst into the building overnight. They entered through a second-story window and made dozens of arrests. Officers removed all of the protesters who took over Hamilton Hall on Monday night. Some demonstrators shouted shame as the police started making arrests. The tent encampment at Columbia has also been cleared. The university president says she has asked the police to remain on campus until May 17th. That is 2 days after graduation. She asked officers to make sure the encampments are not reestablished. There is a major push to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East, too. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Tel Aviv. He's working to get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in place.
The only reason that wouldn't be achieved is because of Hamas. There is a proposal on the table, and as we've said, no delays, no excuses. The time is now.
This current round of talks appears to be serious. Hamas has reportedly just asked for more clarity on whether displaced Palestinians will be able to return to northern Gaza. And in Israel, families of the hostages hope this deal will bring their loved ones home.
SOS USA! Bring our children home today! Bring our children home today!
A group outside the venue where Blinken has been meeting with Israeli President Isaac Herzog, Blinken told them to keep the faith. He says bringing the hostages home is at the heart of everything the U.S. has done. In Ottawa, Wednesday is normally the most heated question period of the week, but it has already been a dysfunctional week in the House of Commons. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre was kicked out yesterday for breaking the rules and calling the Prime Minister a wacko. Then the rest of his caucus left in protest. Let's bring in Janice McGregor from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, has something fundamentally changed with the way Canadians do politics?
Marcia, yes, things reached a boiling point yesterday, but it's not clear that this is a turning point. After the opposition bench emptied, MPs picked up their phones, took the fight online, ranting to their armies of virtual supporters, pushing for sign-ups and donations, monetizing, basically, the dysfunction in the House. Those wanting to talk to Conservatives in real life about what happened had to make do with fleeting camera shots of even normally accessible Conservative MPs like Michelle Rempel-Garner as she booted it down the hall.
And the fellow leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, just thrown out of there for doing his exact job, is shameful, unbelievable.
On Power and Politics last night, NDP House Leader Peter Julian pointed out that when his Conservative counterpart, Andrew Scheer, was Speaker, he drew a very hard line against any MP that questioned the decisions of the chair. Government House Leader Stephen McKinnon framed this dysfunction as an attempt to make Canada's democracy look like it's broken too, telling viewers this is not banal or normal.
They break the rules. They are called on breaking those rules, invited to comply with the rules, and when that doesn't work, they go out and they scream victimhood. They say the institutions do not welcome our views.
Well, how much does this have to do with the Speaker's control of the House?
Remember, Conservatives never wanted Greg Fergus to be Speaker. It was votes of other parties that elected him. Yesterday, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet thanked the Speaker for his common sense in the heat of the moment. The other parties loved having extra questions with the official opposition gone.
All right, thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor reporting from Ottawa. Today is the official start date of the $34 billion Trans Mountain Oil Pipeline expansion. The twin pipeline from Alberta to the BC coast will be transporting crude oil. It's become one of the most costly infrastructure projects in Canadian history. The expansion increases the Trans Mountain system's shipping capacity from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000. It is expected to help open up global export markets for Canadian oil and help improve the price Canadian oil companies get for their product. Property owners in British Columbia are pushing back against new rules for short-term rentals. They take effect today. But a group of some property owners has asked the BC Supreme Court to review the new regulations. Yvette Brand has the details.
Rights are being canceled.
The shift in the short-term rental landscape came too fast with too little consultation, according to Orion Rogers, who runs an advocacy group for BC property owners.
They're canceling people's businesses at the moment and people that were licensed and lawful. So it's affecting a lot of people across the province.
His group has launched a challenge to the law that takes effect today, limiting short-term rentals to principal residences. BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon says the legislation announced last October is needed to help address the lack of affordable housing.
People have had plenty of time to either rent their properties for long term or, if they choose, to sell them. And we have seen many people do that.
But British Columbians who rent secondary properties to help them afford their mortgages say they're frustrated.
I was pretty upset, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Delta resident Chad Overman says he will probably be forced to sell a luxury property that he rented to tourists in the summer and at a lower rate to students in the off-season. Although he doesn't believe that waterfront property will become affordable housing in any scenario. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Vancouver.
Grocery giant Loblaw could be facing a boycott starting today. An online campaign has been targeting the company. People frustrated with rising food prices are asking Canadians to shop at other stores this May. Anis Hedari reports.
Remember when they were caught fixing bread prices?
Les Misères Loblaws, a musical take from Toronto's Opera Review with the push to boycott the biggest food retailer in Canada.
Have you heard of the guillotine?
In non-musical versions of the campaign, social media site Reddit features a section called Loblaws is Out of Control. It's calling for Canadians to shop somewhere else in May. Food retail analyst Kevin Greer says he understands the vibe when it comes to food prices and inflation.
Now, is it fair to blame Loblaw? No. I think it's easiest to blame Loblaw. They're the biggest.
More than 50,000 Reddit members have signed up for the anti-Loblaw page. But that doesn't mean 50,000 people will be shopping elsewhere, says University of Toronto marketing professor David Soberman.
With social media and with the fact that people are able to publicize their upset and anger at a particular organization, it gives us the impression that it's much larger than it is.
However, Loblaw could still be hurt by this campaign if customers decide to just try somewhere else.
Because there's always a possibility they might actually prefer the competitor to you. So that's really where the risk for Loblaws lies in this.
While Loblaw is reporting its profits today, they won't reflect the backlash, if any, to this boycott. The company said in a statement it's aware it has to win customers' business, but that it believes customers are noticing value at its stores. Anis Hedari, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Magandang umaga, good morning Manitoba. Faith Fundal here in Studio 15 at Portage & Spence. I'm in for Marcy Mercusa. This is Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And hello as well to the folks streaming on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. Corey Funk, our studio director. Abby Adiemi, our technician. In this half hour, we sent Corey Funk out on his bike to hear what the Green Action Centre has planned as we continue with May and Bike Everywhere Month. It was do or die with the Winnipeg Jets last night. So how did the Jets do? I think you already know. We'll get a full debrief with athletic reporter Murat Atesh coming up next. Stay tuned. Minutes after 8 o'clock. And Heather Wells joining us now from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, some people in Peguis First Nation have been forced to live in a condemned school because of a housing crisis. Even though the Interlake community did not flood this spring, the lingering effects of previous floods remain. Hundreds of homes have been condemned. Almost 800 people are displaced. And Peguis has now declared a state of emergency. We'll hear more coming up. And remote healthcare workers in Winnipeg have been told they need to prepare to spend more time in the office this summer. Shared Health and the WRHA saying all remote workers in Winnipeg need to spend at least half of their hours in the office starting in July. Those stories and more in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Abby Adiemi is our technician, also watching the weather forecast.
Good morning. Once again, still stuck at 6 degrees, cloudy skies blanketing the city this morning. We're looking at that mix of clouds with a chance of showers lingering into the early part of the afternoon. But don't worry, the clouds are expected to break up later, giving us some kind of a break, and then we'll be expecting a high of 13 degrees. Tonight, the clear conditions are on the horizon, but watch out for increasing clouds towards the early hours of tomorrow morning, as we'll be seeing some fog patches developing overnight. So stay cautious if you're out and you're on the roadways. Tomorrow brings another cloudy day with rain starting in the morning and lasting throughout, so you might want to grab your umbrella if you're planning for tomorrow. We're expecting about 10 to 15 millimeters of rain. However, the fog patches should be clearing up by midday tomorrow. Cloudy skies across the province today. Light rain in Brandon at 13, heading to a high of 13. Thompson is having some flurries, a high of 4 degrees. Churchill mostly cloudy at 1. Dauphin is cloudy with showers heading to a high of 6. Gimli, some chance of showers, high of 7. Steinbach is cloudy. And of course, Morris is also cloudy. Some showers expected, both heading to a high of 15 today. We're just going to see showers followed by clear nights and then potentials for fog in the morning.
All right, thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Abby Adiemi is our studio technician here today. We decided to send Corey Funk, our studio director, out just to bike just outside Kamayuk. Good morning, Corey.
Good morning, Faith.
How is the commute going? How did it go? Your very short commute.
Yes, it was very short. It's a little chilly and a little rainy, so I do suggest if you are hopping on your bike this morning, mitts wouldn't hurt. I froze my fingers a little bit. And definitely you want a bit of a rain jacket because that drizzle is starting to come down. I've actually kind of tucked under that entrance to all the light bulbs here in Kamayuk right now, and it's giving me a little bit of shelter for now. If you're not on a bike or if you're out there on the roads right now driving around, you do want to keep an eye out on Wellington and Barrie. Actually, you did want to keep an eye out because there was a collision, but actually that has now been cleared. So far things actually are running pretty smoothly. Commuter line has been quiet this morning. Traffic is starting to pick up here, though, on Memorial. But if you do see something going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line at 204-788-3093.
Coming up to 15 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. The Jets' playoff hopes are over, losing to the Avs last night 6-3. And as Colorado gained a commanding lead, fans at the whiteout party spent the third period drowning their sorrows. The CBC's Gavin Axelrod spoke with a few of them as reality was setting in.
So looks like the Jets are about to get knocked out of the playoffs. What do you think went wrong for them this series?
No, we had the forward dead, but our defense, it's just our defense. Hellebuck's just not a playoff goaltender. Hey, they couldn't get pucks in deep. They couldn't score, man. The Avalanche is just a completely better team. McCarr owns us. McKinnon owns us. And we'll get them next year. That's all I can say.
The Jets didn't play their game as good as they are about themselves. Maybe next year.
What did they have to do to get over this hump of losing in the first round?
Hump's over. Losing Monahan or losing which they lost the first game. Rebuild to
Do you want the Jets to blow it all up after this?
They should. We're not good enough. We don't have the pieces to put it in place, you know?
So are you expecting the Jets to go farther this
Honestly, I was really praying that they would pull this through, but unfortunately they didn't. But next year, let's hope for the best.
Radotesh covers the Jets for The Athletic. I spoke with him earlier today just before 6 a.m. And if you're wondering if he got any sleep last night,
Absolutely not. Published at the end of the game. Certainly covered the series in full and was in Denver and back. And then the post-mortem begins. And spent overnight writing about what comes next, roster moves, all of the things that come out of the season the Jets had.
before we talk about what's next, we got to talk about last night. What did you think? Were you surprised with the result?
Well, Colorado has been such an overpowering, dominant team in the playoffs. I think the Avalanche raises their game to a level that the Jets weren't prepared for and didn't have answers for most of the series. Turned out to be Winnipeg's best game, though. They pushed back really hard. They made some adjustments that they needed to make. They made it a game, but in the end, Colorado was just too powerful for them.
I mean, it's really interesting because you speak to Jets fans, and it really is a divide between they did terribly, how dare them, to actually, if you really think about the team that we played against, we did pretty well. What have you heard from the folks around you and from what you've seen online?
I think people are pretty frustrated because as of January, it was the top team in the National Hockey League. Winnipeg was at the top of the NHL standings. They finished the season with the fewest goals against in the entire National Hockey League. That was an amazing accomplishment. A lot of their players will receive votes for end of season awards, and yet they were still unable to keep pace with a dominant Colorado team who will go deep, who is a quality team. But I think that disappointment is hitting hard first and foremost.
Do you know what went wrong?
I think that Colorado had a level to its game that Winnipeg couldn't match. They were too fast, they were too aggressive, and Winnipeg was a bit slow to make some adaptations. Their defense struggled to get the puck up ice. I think that was the biggest thing, was Colorado's pressure on Winnipeg's breakout. Took away a lot of outlets, took away a lot of options. Winnipeg struggled to get going.
And of course, some folks will say it's the power plays or penalty kills that we really failed. Would you agree with that characterization?
Winnipeg's power play showed up. It got the job done. It scored more off, or it scored at an acceptable rate, a good percentage compared to other teams and to the regular season. The penalty kill was caved in, and that was definitely a trouble spot for the Jets. It was something we identified at The Athletic in the series preview heading in. This was an area Colorado was going to have an advantage, so Winnipeg needed to stay disciplined. It did that in Game 5, but certainly penalty trouble got away from it earlier.
There are fans who are blaming Connor Hellebuck partly for the losses. I mean, is that fair, do you think?
Well, Winnipeg gave up more scoring chances per minute of gameplay to the Colorado Avalanche than the worst team in the National Hockey League, the San Jose Sharks, did during the regular season.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the goal totals and wondering, hey, is this the goalie's fault? Absolutely not. This was a team that attacked in waves. Colorado stars were all over the Jets. Colorado's depth players were all over the Jets. It was really one-sided for a lot of the series. Connor Hellebuck didn't steal the series, as is advertised he's capable of doing, but this is not just a Connor Hellebuck story.
At the end of seasons, usually the coach's head is on the chopping block. Do you think that's going to be the case this time?
It's a unique situation where Rick Bowness has a club option on his contract right now. So it's going to be a decision made by the Jets organization, likely in consultation with him, to be honest, because of the respect that they have for him, for his veteran status, for his love of Winnipeg. He's moved the Jets needle forward a lot, particularly defensively over the last couple of years. but it might be time at the same time. So he was asked about it after Game 5, said it's too soon to talk about it. We will see what comes out of it.
And of course, whenever you get to losses, there's always okay, we can rebuild. How might we see that, do you think?
Well, Winnipeg was in a really tough spot heading into last summer with some key players with major decisions. It came out of that with a really great trade. Pierre-Luc Dubois went out the door. In came Gabriel Velarde, one of the centerpieces of Winnipeg's season. Alex Iafallo and Rasmus Kupari also in that trade. They also re-signed Hellebuyck and Scheifele to long-term deals. So these types of roster surgery were largely accomplished heading into the season. It's more going to be about addressing free agent defensemen like Brendan Dillon and Brendan Dillon and Dylan DeMello. Laurent Brossoit is an unrestricted free agent as well. And of course, the trade deadline acquisitions of Sean Monahan, Tyler Toffoli, and Colin Miller, also perhaps free to go. I think those are the areas you're going to see the most change.
Do you have any words of, I don't even know what the words are, to help alleviate however Jets fans are feeling this morning?
Well, I think it's a case where the Winnipeg Jets took an enormous step forward this season. It's not that the regular season is going to offer anybody waking up today consolation, but it is a sign that an organization that needed to take a big step forward did that. You can also compare to Rick Bowness's press conference in Vegas a year ago after a 5-game loss, where he's criticizing the team for a lack of pushback, a lack of dedication. The star players weren't good enough. This year, his message was, hey, we were a lot better. We have some distance to go. Colorado outplayed us. And that's a much more sensible place to be building heading into the next season.
And Winnipeg fans don't have to go very far away because, of course, basketball season starts soon. So there you go. We'll talk to you soon. Take good care. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jets for The Athletic. We spoke with him just before 6 o'clock earlier today.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
And we're going to hear from Janet Stewart coming up in this half hour of the program. Stay tuned for more on what the topic is at noon today. We're just about 23 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Faith Fundal sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Green Action Centre has dubbed May Bike Everywhere Month here in Manitoba. And the CBC's Corey Funk has taken it very seriously. He just biked over from Studio 15 here and is outside Kamayuk to meet up with one of the organizers. Corey, how was the ride?
It was good. It was your kind of classic Winnipeg ride. There is a bike lane actually that runs from CBC over to Kamayuk here, but it kind of stops halfway, and then all of a sudden you're going against a one-way, and you're like, what do I do now? But then I got here. I'm safe. It was raining a little bit, and Ariel DeRoche also biked here too. She's the Sustainable Transportation Coordinator with the Green Action Centre and overseeing the programming for Bike Everywhere Month. Good morning, Ariel.
Morning.
So how was your ride over?
It was pretty good. It wasn't raining too much, which was great because I don't have fenders on my bike, and there wasn't too much wind, which was lovely. So
you also bike a lot. You kind of practice what you preach, and I know you also use your bike to run errands. You do bike everywhere, if you will. So what's the toughest thing you've actually ever had to carry on your bike?
Well, I don't take too many risks, but probably just like a huge load of groceries and, a bouquet of flowers in one hand and just...
Wait, a bouquet of flowers. So did you lose any petals? I'm talking about like flower petals, not bike petals.
Yeah. The bike petals? No flowers were lost.
Impressive, very impressive. That's an advanced skill. So I know this month, I know it used to be called actually Bike to School Month, but now Green Action Centre, you're calling it Bike Everywhere Month. So why that change?
So it was rebranded during the pandemic when kids weren't in class as much or at all. But now we've just kept it that way because it's a little bit more accessible for kids who might be homeschooled or just to encourage people to really bike everywhere, which is what we want. So
how can kids, families take part?
So you can register at our website, greenactioncentre.ca/ASRTS/Bike Everywhere Month. And basically, once you register, and you can register as a parent or as a teacher, you can register your classroom, your whole school, or just your kids. And you get some resources and materials and just the opportunity to try to bike everywhere through our encouragement.
Hey, and I know you got some programming to kind of help people bike everywhere. What do you kind of planned?
So, other than our activity kit, which has a bunch of different activities in it, from mapping your ride to doing a little neighborhood redesign, we're also partnering with Green Kids Inc. to do a little theater in the park at Assiniboine Park on May 26th. So there's more about that on our website, but it's just a really fun little ride where we have lots of little pit stops with little theater shows. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That sounds like fun. I know also, it's not like I even mentioned on the way here, like there's those physical like infrastructure barriers, but there's also just other barriers keeping people from biking everywhere in Winnipeg. What do you notice are some of the things that are keeping people from actually, getting on their bikes and just going where they need to go every day?
Well, like you said, infrastructure and safety is the biggest one, especially when you have young children or even tweens and teens who want to bike on their own. We've had school admins express worry that their students aren't getting to school safely. But another thing is also people have busy lives and busy schedules, and sometimes I think they don't see biking as being very convenient. So we just want to show folks that it can be with a little bit of pre-planning. And, through this work, we are advocating for more infrastructure in the city.
And this is the third year now. You said you've been doing like this rendition of it, this version of it. What's participation been like the past few years in the program?
So last year we had 2,500 kids registered for the event, and this year we have just under, I think, 1,500 right now, and it'll probably increase during the month because people will continue to sign up.
Any tips for people who are like, yeah, let's go, I want to do this?
Probably a little bit of pre-planning, knowing your route, especially where you want to go, and just, you don't have to do it every day of the month. You can just start off with one day a week, or you can just do it once. It's just about getting out there, trying it, seeing if it works for you, and it might, and then you can continue.
Is there any stories that stand out to you from like, people who've done it before or anything like that?
Really just teachers who sign up their classrooms and just spend the whole month doing tons of activities, monitoring the kids' kilometers that they bike, sending us images online just of like what their classroom is doing. That always stands out to me to show like how dedicated some teachers are.
And, I know you kind of mentioned before, but before we go here, just can you remind people again where people can go if they want to sign up for this?
Yes, you can sign up at our website. So it's greenactioncentre.ca/ASRTS/Bike Everywhere Month.
Thanks a lot. That's Ariel DeRoche. She's the Sustainable Transportation Coordinator with the Green Action Centre. Now, Faith, I'm going to see if I can bike back to the studio before the show ends. Do you think I got a shot?
I don't advocate for unsafe conditions, so get yourself as safely back as possible.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's Corey Funk outside, just speaking to us outside Kalmayuk this hour. We're just about 28 minutes after 8 o'clock here on CBC Radio 1. Janet Stewart, host of Radio Noon, is here. Good morning.
Faith. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm surprised I'm awake.
Yes.
Of course, I'm in from Mercy
yes.
Marcusa. This is very early for me.
A change in schedule.
It's
a difficult thing.
It's difficult. What are you talking about today on the show?
Plastic. We're talking about plastics. There was a big summit in Ottawa, just wrapped up. What this is 176 countries, 4,000 people arguing about how we can do better as a globe in terms of producing less plastic or recycling it better or just making sure it doesn't end up in our oceans and on the shores of countries that really don't want it there. So today, that wrapped up yesterday. Today we have Dr. Joe Ackerman with us. He runs something at the University of Manitoba called the Sustainability and Action Facility. And he's a really cool guy. And he's got a lot of kind of sharp ideas about sustainability. So our question for you is, this is a call-in conversation. We want to hear from Manitobans. What do you think? How can we use and dispose of less plastic? The number to call right now is 204-788-3797. You can call that anytime that Radio Noon is not live on the air taking your calls. 204-788-3797. You leave us a message and we can talk about your ideas on air. And then at 12:30, we'll open our live lines.
It's going to be a big conversation, and lots of folks have lots of things to say about this, so looking forward to it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Janet Stewart, host of Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1. You can, of course, tune in to the program at 12 o'clock and tune in for the call-in portion at 12:30. The phone number to call, 204-788-3797, 204-788-3797. I'm Faith Fundal here on Up to Speed on CBC. Nope. See, I already did it. Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, a little bit of light rain in parts of the city right now. It's 6 degrees. We're going to see some clearing this afternoon. Today's high is 13. Police in Edmonton believe a drive-by shooting in Winnipeg may be connected to a series of arsons and other shootings in Alberta. South Asian home builders have been targeted in Edmonton. The Winnipeg shooting happened Christmas Eve in the Maples. Edmonton Police Staff Sergeant Eric Stewart says several members of the family were home at the time, one bullet narrowly missing someone. He says the homeowner had been extorted and threatened before the shooting, but Stewart would not say much else about them.
I can't give too many details. Obviously, we're trying to protect the complainants in some of these events, right? It's tough for sometimes to come forward and be a willing complainant in these investigations. So I can tell you, connected to a home builder in Edmonton.
Investigators allege a 19-year-old suspect who they believe has gone to India is responsible for that shooting and two others in Edmonton. Some people in Peguis First Nation have been forced to live in a condemned school because of a housing crisis. Even though the Interlake community did not flood this year, the lingering effects of previous floods remain. Hundreds of homes have been condemned. Almost 800 people are displaced. Jace Garson and his partner are among 8 people staying in rooms at the condemned school in Peguis.
We're having a hard time with housing right now, and there's about few of us that are staying in here. And it is kind of hard having a host in here.
The roof leaks, the walls have mold. Garson says he can't bring his 3 daughters to live with him. They're in Fisher River with his sister. Peguis has now declared a state of emergency because of the housing crisis. The Canadian Muslim Women's Institute, as of yesterday's income tax deadline, says it has saved newcomers millions of dollars. The Institute offers a program to file people's taxes free of charge. Institute President Yasmin Ali says they have staff who speak numerous languages and have helped hundreds of newcomers and refugees.
This year we had $4 million back in refunds and benefits for our clients. We've done over 850 clients' taxes already, and we're still doing. They're still coming, because we can do taxes all year round.
Ali says many of the people don't understand the process and can't afford to have a tax service file their taxes. Happy days are here again for fans of Happy Land Pool. The outdoor facility in St. Boniface has been slated for closure in the city's 2024 budget, but a group calling itself Friends of Happy Land Pool has now raised $70,000. The group's Teresa Quick says they want to give that money to the city to keep the pool open for at least one more year.
We're hoping to continue this for many years. If we manage to keep it open this year, it will give us some time to work on a solution to saving it for the future years.
The motion to consider using the funding to keep Happy Land open for the season is expected to go to a city committee next week. A sagging First Nation woman is in the running to become the first ever Miss Indigenous Canada. Ocean Briere will be one of 29 contestants at the pageant this July in Southern Ontario. The mother of 2 boys was one of more than 350 women across Canada who sent in an application. She says the pageant represents an opportunity for herself and other Indigenous women.
The very first thing that popped into my mind is trailblazing. And, the ripple effect from it, whether I win the contest or not, I know I'm just paving a way for other Indigenous women.
Briere says modeling's always been a childhood dream. She has set up a GoFundMe page and is looking for sponsorships to help cover her travel costs. It's a chant that won't be heard again until next season. Thousands of Winnipeg Jets fans at the Whiteout Street Party last night, but it wasn't to be. The Jets were eliminated in 5 games. Fans like Shasta Chartrand are feeling the emotion of that loss.
Sad ending to a great season, and I really feel for Hellebuck. I really do. He's the one I cry for the most.
Hellebuck with 27 saves last night, and the Jets did get the start to the game they wanted. Kyle Connor in the first period on ESPN. But the Jets fall 6-3 to Colorado. The Jets' Josh Morrissey says it is a disappointing missed opportunity.
They brought the Stanley Cup winning class to this series, and we didn't return it for 3 or 4 of those games. So we have levels that we need to find this offseason, and I hope it stings for all of us into the summer, and we use it as motivation.
Despite the early exit, coach Rick Bowness pulls a positive out of a negative, saying his team has grown since last year's playoffs. In fact, he thinks last night's game was the best the Jets played in the playoffs. So Winnipeg now the first Canadian team out of the NHL playoffs. You can find more news updated throughout the day, as well as more on last night's game. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Don't you worry, it does sting.
It really does.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells from your CBC Winnipeg local news desk. Joni Nicolou there as well. Megan Ketchison, Darren Bernhardt. By the way, Corey Funk made it. Hello.
Woohoo! You know, also stings my hands. I should have worn mitts. It's pretty chill out there for the 1st of May.
You're going to learn.
Yes, you certainly are. If you are out there on drive-in, it's been a really smooth commute so far. If you're biking, though, definitely wear mitts. And it's raining as well, so you definitely going to want to bring a cycling umbrella. That's not a thing.
Abby Adiemi, the weather?
Light rain in the city right now. Today's forecast has a mix of clouds and showers followed by clear nights and potential fog patches. And of course, we've got, like I mentioned, everything in the forecast today. Showers, clearing, and more rain.
Thank you very much. Brad Lillies is our streaming producer. Thanks for the folks on our CBC Manitoba YouTube stream watching us. I'm Faith Fundal, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Mag-ingat po kayo and take good care wherever you are. The Current is next, and don't forget to tune into Radio Noon with Janet Stewart, and Chloe Friesen is in the host chair on Up to Speed. See you later.